Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. You're tuning into episode 256. It is February 1st. It's Whiskey Wednesday. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, Nate.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday, Steve.
I didn't want to pull that up. What the frick? Come on. What is all this?
So many technical issues.
What's going on here?
Facebook, you sons of...
All right. Well, that's fun. And my iPad is locked up. That's neat. Anyways, we'll see what we can do with that here. Wish we had an actual producer. I want to thank you guys for tuning in here, and I hope you guys review, like, and share the show. Tonight, you've got Nate and myself on here. I'm Steve Crane, Nate Hale, and I want to thank our sponsors. So you've got patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. That's you guys out there. We appreciate all the support on a monthly basis. This month, we do it at the beginning of the month. So if you guys are a part of that, it should be coming out of your accounts and getting over to us, which we appreciate. It's fantastic. Thank you guys very much. There's three different tiers: $5, $10, and $25. And you guys can do it as long as you'd like. We appreciate the support. Helps us out with keeping this thing going and the tech support stuff as well. Venmo at Bourbon and BS. If you want to do a one-time donation or contribution, you can do that on Venmo, and it's at Bourbon and BS for where you send it. Also want to thank Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. We are smoking tonight the Ferio Tego Timeless Panamericana, and they do have that in stock as of this week. They are a Ferio Tego account, so check them out. Tinderbox at Easton for all the Ferio Tego stuff that they got in Panamericana. You also have the Timeless Supreme. They brought in the Timeless Limited 2021, which is a great cigar, and also the Generoso and Elegancia. So that's the 2022.
Those are coming back, right?
Those are coming back. We had the 2021, but just one box of each. But yeah, this is now we are a full-blown retailer. So thank you, Michael Herklotz, for setting that up. We're going to get him back on the show.
I'm sure for those unfamiliar with Ferio Tego, we'll go into that when we talk about the cigar.
A little bit, yeah, absolutely. This thing's coming back here. All right, here we are. Got to fire it back up, that iPad. I also want to thank Altadis USA, great supporter of the show. Hope to be talking to them again about doing another year contract with us. We appreciate the support. And the second cigar tonight is an Altadis cigar, the H. Upman. That's Nicaragua Heritage. That's a Churchill. So we got some big cigars tonight. We may be smoking them all. May not. I don't know. BS Cigar Company Gold and Silver are available now at the Tinderbox at Easton as well in Columbus, Ohio. The gold is made by Placencia. The silver is made by Espinosa. So we are appreciative of your support on the BS Cigar Company. And then if you guys want some swag, you can see the Bourbon and BS Barrelhead logo, black camo that Nate is wearing. I am bundled up, but I have the blue and white BS Cigar Company hoodie on. So we got I got a t-shirt on underneath, but it's just cold. Yesterday was bitter cold here. I don't know if you were out and about at all yesterday, Nate, but just
when I had to scrape my windows to go to work and come home from work.
Just bitey. So yeah, bourbon, buyjack.com/bourbon and BS for any of the swag. We appreciate that support as well. And Ray Cheshire, good morning where you are. Good evening where everyone else is. Most of the people listening to this show. And I'll be sharing this, and I encourage you guys all to do the same.
I just realized when I said that, like, I haven't had to go to work for my main job in almost 3 years now.
Oh, poor guy.
That's changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So how did it go, Nate? Everyone was asking how it's gone so far.
So
that's a new job.
New job. I was there Monday and Tuesday, and Monday, because it was the end of the month, in the evening we were super busy with wine tastings.
Yeah,
because people get 2 tastings a month. Most of them had already done one. They're like, oh, and the tastings don't carry over. Their bottles do, but the tastings don't. So at one point we actually had people waiting to be able to do a tasting.
Okay.
And I was supposed to get out of there at 6:00, and there were just so many people, plus everyone coming in and, shopping for wine and spirits and stuff like that. So I ended up hanging out just to like run the register and be out on the floor. So that way the staff that was doing the tastings could just focus on doing the tastings. And then, about 7:00 is when it started to slow down. I was like, all right, guys, I'm out. Because one of the ladies goes, if you hang out any longer, you're going to have to start polishing some glasses. I was like, it's slowing down. I'm good.
I'm out.
Yeah. And then last night was the first night that I closed. So learning that procedure and stuff, and talking with people that have been there for a while, and coming up with ways to prevent assholes from stealing shit. I hate thieves. But again, busy day yesterday with that stuff. But the thing that stood out to me the most in the first 2 days was I get asked more for Blanton's in a day than an entire weekend at the cigar shop being asked for Cubans. And at some point, and it gets to the point where people are like, I got to ask, do you have? Nope.
You can't do that.
As soon as the B hits their lips, like, nope, come on Saturdays. Maybe we'll have it. Maybe we won't.
No, we got other whiskeys you can buy.
Yes, we have other whiskeys.
Cold butane going into a lighter. It's going to be beautiful.
But no, I mean, had on Monday, my first day, someone was buying something out of the lock cabinet, and I'm like, oh shit! Like I thought that stuff just kind of sits there.
Yeah,
it's like, nope. There are certain clientele. Same thing with the wine. We have rare bottles of wine in a cabinet. There are certain customers that they come in and that is the stuff they want, and they go right to it. So it's not even one of those that you have to like try and sell and convince a person to buy.
Right.
It's just which bottle out of that cabinet are they going to pick this week?
I gotcha. Nice.
So yeah, definitely been interesting, and it's been a lot of fun, I have to say.
That's good to hear, man.
Like just being on the floor and working with customers, even though I just started and I don't have the answers to everything, especially on the wine side, just being there, working with the customers, helping them find something that they're looking for. There were a couple where they came in with a picture. And I'm like, oh yeah, got that right here. And they're like, sweet, we'll take 4. It's like, makes me feel good.
Nice.
And then it's also interesting, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, you get sales reps coming in and you're doing tastings at the counter at 11 o'clock in the morning.
I like it. I like that a lot.
A lot of spitting into those rum chata cups.
Sure. Helps you sell, right? All right. That's good. I'm glad to hear it. It's fantastic that you are enjoying it so far.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing a little bit more about it. I'm sure everyone out there is as well.
Just sidebar, next Monday is supposed to be my official start. Got to go in for jury duty. Son of a bitch.
Be excited to hear about the court case as well, because I'm sure you can talk about that.
Yeah, right.
Perfect. They won't find out. No one's listening. But tonight we are sipping on Buzzard's Roost straight rye whiskey. This is barrel strength. This is batch number 3.
Yes.
And Nate, you brought this, and we have something else that we can try.
Yeah.
Kind of alongside this after we get into this a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the Buzzard's Roost a little bit. And as I mentioned before, we are smoking right now the Ferio Tego Timeless Panamericana. And that's from Ferio Tego. We'll talk a little bit about that as well coming up. But you want to start with the bottle?
Yeah. So this is the barrel strength straight rye. This is coming in at 112.9 proof. Buzzard's Roost is a newer brand. The gentleman who started it actually started a whiskey bar, and he's done hundreds of tastings throughout his time doing that and being involved in the whiskey industry. And his whole purpose for this brand was, and that's why it says on the back, like Buzzard's Roost sipping whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make whiskeys that are just that. You sit there and you sip on them. You're not doing shots. You're not using it as a mixer in a cocktail. Just purely enjoying what's in the bottle. As of right now, everything, because they are newer, and especially because a lot of what they do is rye. It's all being done at MGP, but it is being bottled in Bardstown at their own facility there. But it is an MGP product. MGP is definitely known for a couple of their rye mash bills. So if you wanted to make a high-end rye, like this is, they're a good source to have. So basically, they go and they taste some barrels and they pick some barrels. And this one's barrel strength, so this one is going to be a blend of rye barrels. It's not a single barrel. They do have single barrels. And then a lot of their stuff as well, like with their bourbons, they do some barrel strength bourbons. They do some different wood finishes and stuff like that. This whiskey, so the barrel strength and the single barrel ryes won gold medals in San Francisco last year, and then their toasted barrel bourbon won a double gold in San Francisco.
Nice.
So, whatever that's worth. Some people care about the accolades, some people don't. I think you and I are the kind of people that we care more about what's in the bottle.
Right. It is nice to see, though, that they've got some recognition on it. It gives it a little bit of credibility. I do, just like in the cigar world, I kind of, when they get a high rating, you're just like, I feel like there's so many, like, how many of these awards are they giving out?
Yeah.
How many festivals are there?
How many categories?
Right.
There's 25 categories for Kentucky ryes made in Indiana. It's like, well, where's the special?
Yeah, right. So what the quality? It'd be nice to see it. But it's good to see that.
Yeah. But this is a newer product.
Do we have? You said is the mash bill? You said it's a blend.
So they blend. So it's blend. It's one mash bill, but they're combining barrels. So it's the strength of whatever that combination of barrels is. This one, they don't disclose the age on. The bottle you have over there, it does say aged at least 48 months, which would be 4 years.
Thank you for the math there.
Yeah, you're welcome. This one does not say anything about an age statement. It just says the batch and the proof. Like I said, this one's coming in at 112.9. I know at my new job, they have the barrel strength bourbon. That's 113.1. I think the bottle you have over there is 114.
114 and some change, I think.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they're all coming in, that low to mid 110s.
Nice.
So 110 to 116 is about where they're coming.
Barrel strength, nothing crazy though.
No, it's not like 142.
Yeah. which is again, that's totally fine. Whatever you want. I think this is a sweet spot for me a lot of times with barrel strengths, because you still you're not, like I said, not going too crazy. I have no problem with the 120s and even higher than that, but I think it is nice that this is barrel strength. There's some guests we've talked to in the past that I think that sometimes when you keep it about the flavor first and foremost, sometimes that's not saying people don't do that. I'm trying to word this correctly, but the way I'll say it is basically that they're going for flavor first, and where it falls, that's where it falls. I think that's where the sweet spot is, where this doesn't have a whole lot of like kick. You know what I mean? It's got a nice, strong characteristic to it, but it's not going to be.
It's not overwhelming.
It's not. Yeah, it's not killing you.
Yeah, I mean, especially with as many different types of whiskeys as we drink, 112's not really going to knock our socks off. We're just hoping that it's good at that proof. If we have to, we can add a couple drops of water and see what happens if we proof it down. But coming in at 112.9, it's not gonna be super hot. Even though it is a rye, it's not gonna be a super spicy bottle that you have to proof down. You can drink this neat like we are, and I think you'll be just fine with it.
Yeah. It does have. It's not heat. It's is that spiciness? What is that?
It's almost like kind of like that minty effervescence on the finish.
Yeah. I'm about to move that heater back. It's killing my eyes.
Oh,
goddamn propane! I swear. I can already feel in my. Yeah. We have the garage ventilated, but I mean, again,
it's got quite a bit of that vanilla up front. Like it's not a caramel or fruity sweetness up front. It's more like that vanilla, little spice, and then that minty effervescence on the back.
Yeah. Maybe it's something I ate because that thing we tried inside too, that special pick that you brought over.
Thank you for saying it that way.
You're welcome.
Because we can't disclose what that is.
Special pick that you brought over, as I said. Maybe it's like I said, the combination of food before and this, that ginger note is still sticking around. So maybe that's me, because I said ginger on the special bottle that we sampled before the show, and that's still kind of there.
Okay,
so maybe that's me, or maybe it is there.
That would be ironic, I think.
Yeah. Kind of like a ginger ale, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just okay.
You're probably not getting that. It's probably my palate's probably fucked right now.
It's all those White Claws you drank before.
Oh yeah, the whole variety pack. No, but it does have a spice to it. It's not really heat, but it's got a little bit of that I would characterize it as the rye spice. When you said they don't disclose the mash bill, you said it's the same mash bill on all of them, but they don't disclose the age.
On this one, correct. They do not disclose the age
or the mash bill
on this one, or the mash bill. It's just an MGP.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have that real heavy sweetness that I get from some of the MGP ryes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing this is not one of the 95.5 rye mash bills from MGP.
I don't know.
I would guess this one's more, a little bit lower than that.
So they don't really give you a whole lot. It's just a little bit of like a toast almost to you on the back of the bottle. It says, here at Buzzard's Roost, our innovative approach to maturation allows us to deliver unique flavor profiles into our whiskeys. The whiskey in this bottle has been masterfully blended and then bottled at barrel strength. Sit back, relax, and roost a while.
I see what they did there.
We hope you'll enjoy this expression of Buzzard's Roost. Barrel strength straight rye whiskey. It also says on there, innovation within the bounds of tradition. If anyone out there is listening from Buzzard's Roost, which I highly doubt, I believe there is a typo on here.
Well,
first line, they forgot the apostrophe at Buzzard's on that one. It's there. It's there. There. It's everywhere.
Oh.
Except right there. Get out your red pen, everyone.
Son of a bitch. This is a 95.5.
Hey.
According to some online reviewer.
What do you think of this, Nate? What were your thoughts here? You apparently have the better palate, especially tonight.
So I've had the bottle that you have over there, which
Mm-hmm.
is a state pick single barrel rye, which has a different fairy tale on the back of it.
It does.
But no, I remember that bottle because we've shared that. And then going into this one, I was kind of hoping for something similar to that, and it's not. The barrel strength actually hits a little bit different than the single barrel, even though these two are only 1.2 proof off from one another.
Right.
I think the single barrel pick that you have in your hand is actually more age on it than what we're sipping on tonight.
You think that's why they don't put it on there?
It could be. It could be that with this product, they're going for this type of taste profile, and then the bottle you have, that
which
could
we
be
will pour next and then go back.
That could be the type of profile they're looking for.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean,
this one on the back of it, you're right. They're a little clever here. The new history of American whiskey starts here. We've worked our feathers off to bring you whiskeys that can be enjoyed on any occasion. We diligently sample, then hand select only the finest barrels to become Buzzard's Roost single barrel rye. So relax, sip, and roost a while. You'll enjoy the Buzzard's Roost experience.
Which again, their whole point, what they're going for, is sipping whiskeys.
Correct.
Not mixers, not sit there and just pound away on, drink half a bottle in a night. They want you to just be able to sit there, sip, and enjoy.
the night's long enough, you could do a half a bottle.
If the night is long, yes. If the night's long enough.
This has got a nice flavor. I would say that this has a nice flavor to it. You don't think it's aged as long?
I don't.
Is this one of those? Do you think it tastes young, or are you just assuming that?
I'm not gonna say it tastes young like some of the bourbons that we've had that tasted young. It just the flavor. It doesn't have that richness and depth that I've had with a lot of MGP ryes.
Okay.
So that's what makes me think this one may not be as old as the single barrel.
Yeah.
But then again, with rye, you don't necessarily have to age it as long. There are a lot of companies out there that put out ryes after 2 years. So the single barrel that you have being at least a 4 year, that's obviously got quite a bit of age on it. You've got some out there that, they're 6 year, 10-year ryes. Or if you want to get real crazy, you got like Whistle Pig with the 18-year.
Yeah.
For $500.
Yeah, and that's debatable. We've had different year ones from them.
Yeah. It's funny. My favorite of those two products is the 15 and the Piggyback, the 6 year, which is the youngest one.
Of the ones I've had, I'd say I agree with you on that.
Those are my two favorite.
Yeah.
Are the ones. And that's only because I don't think I've had the 18 and I've only had a sample of the Boss Hog once.
Okay.
And that was one that you gave me that a former regular at the Tinderbox at Easton had given you.
Boss Hog?
Yeah.
No, I think it was 15.
Oh, was it the 15?
That was the blue 15, yeah.
All right.
And that one I did like a lot.
Yes. The 15 I got as a birthday present a few years ago. And I just opened that bottle 2 months ago.
That boy.
So, yes, I really did enjoy that one. Whether or not it's a $300 bottle, that's up to you.
It is a $300 bottle, so that's whether or not you want to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this bottle it's enjoyable. It definitely is a sipper, I would say, and this might be the cigar we're smoking with it. I'm curious about the pairing here and how the cigar goes with a pour of the Ohio State Pick single barrel, because it kind of has, as I'm getting into it a little bit more, are you getting like an aftertaste here?
An aftertaste of
the whiskey. Like it finishes, but then it kind of lingers with like an aftertaste.
Almost like that effervescence, that ethanol just hanging out in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ethanol hangs out, not necessarily the flavor that you get on the palate. It's just that ethanol just kind of hangs out right back here at the top of the throat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly what I'm thinking. So I think the game plan here, if you're down for this, we do this glass, we switch over to the Ohio State Pick.
Yes.
And then we go back to that bottle
and add water
and add a couple drops.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
God, we've been doing this too long. Sorry to be annoying. That was dumb.
Thank God we don't finish each other's.
Shut up. All right. Ferio Tego, the timeless Panamericana. This one it's an interesting story here. So those that don't know the name Ferio Tego, that's because it is relatively new. Now, some of you that know the name Timeless Panamericana, especially Timeless, not as new. This is something that you got enough lighters over there?
Well, because for some reason, even though this one's been in my house, it's cold and doesn't want to fire up.
Yeah, my DuPont style has been.
This one lights up the cigar a lot better.
Got it. So Ferio Tego, this is a company that it's new, founded by. Is Michael Herklotz as well, and he's joined by Brendan Scott. So those guys, Michael Herklotz was the VP of Nat Sherman, kind of the face, and then Brendan Scott was the former CFO of Nat Sherman.
Yeah, we had Herklotz on almost 3 years ago. It was like right after the pandemic started.
Yes, it was early on
2020.
2020, I want to say probably April.
Yeah.
April of 2020. It was an episode.
That was the Front Porch Neighbors.
Yeah, it was a great episode.
Oh, yeah.
Check that out. So if you do a search on the Bourbon and BS, it's Michael Herklotz, Nat Sherman at the time. So he was working for Nat Sherman. We had Kylie Boudreau on there. I think we were trying to recall. I don't think you were on the screen because it was just the three of us, and we were just figuring out the streaming thing because again, it was early on.
Yeah,
we switched the format so we could keep this going during.
it was the streaming and remote.
Yeah, because it was everything was shut down.
Yeah, you and I weren't even doing the podcast. Even the ones that I was on with you, I was still at my house.
Yeah, you weren't, quote, allowed at my house. So
that wasn't Steve's rule.
And so the Timeless Panamericana, this blend was kind of a newer one actually for Nat Sherman. I think it was 2014 this came out, and you couldn't get it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall if it was only available at the Townhouse. I think this blend we had this as the Nat Sherman Timeless at a Smoking 10 event one year. I want to say 2019, maybe. No, not 2019. Yeah, 2018, 2019. I think it was 2019. So we were happy to get it because it was still very limited production, limited availability. Now this is available anywhere that Ferio Tego is selling.
All right.
So when Nat Sherman, it was acquired by, to kind of a brief synopsis, I'm going to get Michael Herklotz on the show here, hopefully in the next month or two. Might have to wait. He did add a room in his house that he can smoke in, because when he was on in 2020, he was sitting outside, and it was funny. Dan Burris, the rep for Camacho, for Davidoff Camacho, and now Ferio Tego, as well as some other brands, he was texting me the week Michael was going to come in. This was last week. And he said, "What's the name of your podcast again?" I texted him back, Bourbon BS Podcast. Do you need a link or something? And he said, "No, Michael, we were trying to figure out what it was called." And I said, "Oh, does he remember it?" And he says, "All he remembers is that it was 3 hours long, and he was pretty, well, I forget how he said it, but basically he was pretty tore up. He was pretty buzzed by the end of it." And then when I talked to him last Thursday, he came in the shop and he said, it was a good conversation. I really enjoyed it. You know, you and Kylie." And he said, "I just remember it was getting, because it was March or April." And he said, "The sun went down. I was outside and I started getting cold. So I just kept drinking." And of course, and he's like, "Let's do it again." So we'll hopefully get him on.
We get that a lot.
So anyways, Nat Sherman was acquired by Altria. It was then for the cigarettes and the premium cigar side, they tried to sell the premium cigar brand starting in, I believe, 2019
yeah,
towards
late,
the end of it.
Yeah.
October. Then the pandemic hit. They, a year later, shut it all down. They shut down. They basically liquidated everything. If they could, they were having a fire sale. Remember, you liked that the Sterling?
Yeah.
Got a box of the Sterling.
I got a box. I got a box, and then you and I split a box.
Yeah.
So I got a box and a half.
Yeah, great cigar.
It's a mild smoke, and I had the Corona Gorda, which was the largest size they made of that blend. And I think normal retail for that cigar was like $17-18.
Yeah.
But for a milder cigar, that was one of my favorites. That's why I told the owner in Tinderbox, like, "Hey, if you go ahead and buy a box, like, I'll buy that."
Yeah.
And then you wanted some as well. And initially you and I were just going to split a box. I was like, "No, I'll take a box, and then you and I will split a box."
Yeah. So basically they had a closeout sale. Anyways, going back to the story, I mean, yeah, and that was some great deals. And then, we were able to pass it along, obviously.
I still have some of those.
Nice. I do not.
Do you want one?
All right, let's stay on track here. Maybe. So they shut it all down in October. They shut the Townhouse down after 90 years in Manhattan area, which is where, Michael Herklotz was based out of. And so it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
No one bought it from Altria. Michael Herklotz, Brendan Scott were part of the deal for the buyout, right? So if someone wanted to purchase the company, they were going along with it. They were going to keep it running, keep it Nat Sherman or whatever. Fast forward, it's all gone. Michael Herklotz, Brendan Scott, they go in and they acquire all the blends, the trademarks. They basically buy the rights to most of the Nat Sherman cigars.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Herklotz the one that was actually doing the blending and,
part of his job was blending. So a lot of these are some of his creations, right? Especially the more recent ones. And again, going back, if you guys listen, there's a great interview with him the first time around. We'll do a little bit of a summary because it's been 3 years with him coming up. But it's just, he worked for Davidoff. Then he moved over to the Nat Sherman company, worked in the townhouse, worked his way up to VP, all this good stuff. Fantastic. So anyways, they started a new company called Ferio Tego and re-released most of the original blends that Nat Sherman had. So you have the Apoco, you have the Metropolitan series, you have the Timeless Prestige, which is Dominican, the Timeless Supreme, which is what we smoked with them on the show back in 2020. And it's just a cool thing. I don't want to overshare because I don't know what he likes to have as public knowledge, but I am going to talk to him about it. But he was re-releasing it, and it's cool that he described it as like, if you have the opportunity to kind of re-release some of these things, you don't want to change it too much if you're going to keep the same name on it.
Yeah.
But if there's something that that was missing, or something that you really wanted to like say, this is a good blend, but we had a lot of feedback, we think that if only it had a little bit of this, it would be an even better blend. There was at least one blend that he admitted to Brian and I on Thursday that he said it was meant to be a Nicaraguan Puro. It was meant to be like something that was kind of for everyone, but people were looking for, when they read up on it, they're expecting like a powerhouse. The thing is that it didn't have any Ligero in it. And so they went and they took the opportunity when they re-released it, that they tweaked it just a little bit. I'm not going to say what it was. I don't want, like I said, I don't want to get in anyone's head what it was, but it was interesting. And again, I don't want to overshare what he had to say about that because I don't know if that's what he wants it to be. But it was cool the way he described it, and I'll see if he'll kind of say it again. He said, because he was a musician as well, and he recorded several albums with bands, and he said there was this one album that he played on, and he messed up on the final recording. Like there was just one moment that he wasn't happy with it, but it stuck. And so that was just like what the song was. Yeah. And he said, he's like, I look at it like that. If I went back to re-record that album, I would do it right. But some people might be like, that's not the way it sounded the first time.
I did that. It was at a concert when I was in band.
Yeah.
As we are getting ready to perform the show, I'm looking at the sheet music, and all of a sudden I realize this one note I'd been playing wrong the previous 6 weeks.
See.
And so then during the live rehearsal, I played the correct note.
It's kind of what it was. It was a cool story.
The thing I remember the most about when he was on was when, so every single year or every time they're coming out with a cigar, when they have a new batch of tobacco coming in that's going to be made up for their cigars, he blends everything to taste. So crop after crop, he wants each cigar to taste the same as the release before.
Correct.
Rather than just strictly using the exact same recipe, this many leaves of this, whatever. He will tweak the composition of it as long as it hits the correct taste profile of that cigar.
Yeah, he's got a hell of a palate, as Charlie Creekmore says. Like I said, looking forward to having him on the show, and again, looking forward to it because he just is a great conversation, and it's a very cool. That first interview we did with him was fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for saying bless you to me. Ferio Tego, the Panamericana, the Timeless here. We're smoking the Gordo. It comes in a few different sizes, I think. So you got basically the Bellicoso Fino, which is a 5.5 by 52 Bellicoso, or Torpedo for those that don't know. You have the Epicure, which is for them, the Epicure is basically a Robusto. It's a 5 by 50. The Gordo 6 by 60. You got a 7 by 48 as well. So you've got about 4 sizes according to this. And it's a cool blend. Basically, guess where this is being made?
Davidoff.
So he uses 3 different factories.
Okay.
Quesada.
All right.
For Dominican. That's a Dominican factory. Now, granted, they can use different blends of tobacco. But this is who Nat Sherman used. So he has great relationship with the Quesada factory in Dominican Republic.
I remember that's what he was trying to do when him and Brandon acquired the blends. They wanted to go back to those original manufacturers and still try and keep that relationship.
So that's what they're doing. And so you have the Dominican, in the Dominican Republic, you have Quesada, family company, great company, a lot of history, a lot of cigars there. And Nicaragua, you have Plasencia. And in Honduras, you have the Camacho factory.
All right.
So owned by Davidoff.
Good company.
Camacho, yeah. So you got 3 good factories. This one being a Nicaraguan dominant blend, this is going to be coming out of the Plasencia factory.
All right.
In Nicaragua. So you got an Ecuadorian.
So many Plasencia cigars.
So many are coming out of there. Ecuadorian wrapper. You've got Nicaraguan, like a thick Nicaraguan
what
binder.
Kind of Ecuadorian wrapper?
I want to say Habano. This site doesn't have it, but the filler is Costa Rican and Nicaragua. Let me find out what it is.
That's what I remember about this cigar the most when it was still under the Nat Sherman brand, was that Costa Rican tobacco in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made this cigar hit.
It's got a little difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Costa Rican almost adds a little bit of saltiness to it.
This says Ecuadorian Sumatra on one of the sites. On the Ferio Tego website itself, it just says Ecuadorian. On this is on cigars.com. It says Ecuadorian Sumatra. So, but then the filler says Nicaragua. You can't trust any of this shit out there. You know what I mean? They don't mention Costa Rican in the filler on that. So, yeah. Anyways, so it's Ecuadorian, could be Sumatra, and then Nicaraguan binder, and then you've got the.
Well, and a lot of times, a lot of the cigars that we've had on the show that have utilized that Costa Rican tobacco, it's usually because that tobacco tends to have this little bit of salty characteristic. And it seems like what they're really trying to do with that tobacco is there is some tobacco in this cigar that they really like the flavor of, but it's a little subtle. So they use that Costa Rican and the saltiness characteristic from that tobacco to try and highlight that one.
Almost like adding salt to a meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and I when I was talking to Michael, I said, it's funny because Costa Rican now is like code word for some people in the industry that is like, well, it might be a little Cuban tobacco in there. And so he looked at me, he's like, this is Costa Rican. I was like, okay.
Not lying, not making shit up. It's like, no, it's actually Costa Rican.
Yeah.
But there's not many cigars that utilize that. And Costa Rican tobacco has similar but different connotation behind it as Ecuadorian. Like when I hear Ecuadorian, I always hear Ecuadorian Connecticut, Ecuadorian Sumatra, Ecuadorian Habano. And usually it's referring to a wrapper.
Yeah.
You don't hear, much Ecuadorian filler, Ecuadorian binder. The Costa Rican, you always hear that as just an added leaf in that filler blend. Like that's all. You don't hear Costa Rican binder or Costa Rican wrapper.
Not typically, no.
Yeah.
Not typically, no. Yeah. It's real cedary, especially on the retro.
You all right?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead. Just dig out something out of my teeth on live stream. Got it.
On the
the retro's got a little bit of that cedary spice.
Yes,
it's like
a lot of wood note, but
it's not like peppery.
No,
it's
there's
like,
a
but it
spice.
still makes you sneeze a little bit.
There's a spice. I got it. Let me go after the retro hail again because there's a note there through the nose that is very unique, and I have an initial taste of it. But I don't want to say it because of something else. I don't want it to seem like it's been subjective to something else we've had tonight.
If you say nutmeg.
Mm-mm.
We got to say it now.
Through the nose.
All right.
Ginger. Not even fucking with you. On the nose. That's what I get on the nose of this, and it's kind of like when we debuted the Upman. What was that gray label Upman? Herman's Batch.
Yeah.
When we debuted that, this is back when I was still sitting over there at the producer's table.
Okay.
Josh Bentley was on with you, and we were featuring that cigar, and you were talking about, there was a flavor note on the palate of that cigar
Yeah.
that you couldn't figure out quite what it was.
Yeah.
And I raised my hand and grabbed the producer mic, and I said, it tastes like ginger on the palate. And you looked at me and you went, that's it. And
I don't know.
That's what this is on the nose for me, is ginger.
Maybe, we might have it just because maybe like one of the candles Kristen had burning, last night, or like it's open in there. It's like got a ginger note to it that was just like all up in our head. I don't know, but there's definitely something going around right now.
No, that's what I get on those. That wood and ginger. That's what I'm getting on the nose of this cigar. That is, it's enjoyable, that's for sure.
It is a nice cigar. What would you classify the strength of this cigar? Not flavor, but strength.
Medium plus.
Yeah.
Not quite medium full.
Medium
not
push.
medium, kind of right there in between, like the high side of medium.
Yeah.
Like, usually I consider the BS Gold like a straight medium. This one's just a little bit above that.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's deceiving. I'd say almost medium full.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Kristen just texted me, said, not sure what you had for dinner, but that pizza bake that she left in there had a lot of Italian seasoning. I did not have that.
I didn't have it.
No, no one's accusing you of grabbing food out of the fridge and just eating it.
But that sounds like something I would do.
Possibly.
No,
I like this cigar. Not a big 660 fan myself, and that's just personal preference. But I mean, it's a nice cigar. The construction, I think, is pretty great. The draw is nice. Burn line is solid. I mean, again, we're outside in the garage.
Mine, I got one side of the cigar that's burning a little faster than the other, but it's not like a canoe. It's just a little bit faster on one side than the other. Nothing bad, nothing terrible, nothing egregious. I don't have any tunnels with this one. Yeah, I mean,
great draw.
The draw is great.
It's got good weight to the cigar. I mean, this is
it's heavy.
It's packed.
Yeah,
I mean, it's packed.
Because there are some companies that you hold one of their cigars. Like, let's say it's a traditional 5x50 Robusto. You hold one of their 550 Robustos, and then you hold another company's 550 Robusto, and you're like, those cigars are different. You can feel it in your hands.
Yeah.
And I used to work for a company that used to weigh every cigar as part of their quality control. This one you can feel in your hands.
It's got some weight to it.
This has got it's got some weight. But a lot of times when you hear it, that cigar's got some weight to it, you're thinking, it's going to be really packed in there. It's going to be a tough draw. No, it draws just fine.
Yeah.
There's no issues with that whatsoever. That wrapper. At first, I was thinking Habano, but when you said Sumatra, I looked, and it does have a little bit of that reddish brown hue to it.
Yeah, it's tough to tell.
That you typically see with a Sumatra or even like a Colorado Oscuro, that kind of red hue.
Yeah. It's got a great sheen also to the wrapper leaf.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. It's a nice cigar. I mean, it's coming in. It's going to be, let's see what the MSRP is here. So it's not the least expensive, but I mean, this is going to be, MSRP is coming in at $14.
Okay.
So,
I mean, remembering where Nat Sherman's used to fall, that's right in the middle of what a lot of the Nat Sherman's was. Like I said, the Sterling in the Corona Gorda, which was like 6 by 46, 48, 46. It was a 6 by 46, somewhere around there. That was a $17, $18 cigar MSRP.
Yeah.
And so this one, you said this is a 660. This is coming in at 14. So, yeah, I mean.
But again, with the smoke time, with the construction of it, I mean, I think you're getting a quality product for the $14 MSRP.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is nice. And they did keep, so for those that haven't seen a picture of this or can't see it obviously on the screen here, they kept the same. So Nat Sherman, when they were acquired by Altria, they did something where it was they didn't want, because they were worried about the FDA, and coming back on it. The original used to be where the timeless is. You say Nat Sherman in the same letters, like almost like a clock looking, and then it would say Nat Sherman, then it would say Panamericana, or timeless underneath that. And so they changed that and they added a secondary band, and it says, it said exclusively by or made by Nat Sherman.
Or for.
Yeah, Nat Sherman made for.
Yeah.
This now has a secondary band. Everything looks the same as the rebrand of Nat Sherman, except now that secondary band says exclusively made just exclusively for Ferio Tego.
Yeah.
So they kept the branding on this stuff, so it was familiar.
Yeah, if you didn't know they went through that change, just walking by and seeing this on the shelf,
like, oh, you got it back.
You would think, exactly. You would think it was the exact same cigar as before. Absolutely.
Which was interesting to talk to him. And again, I'm not trying to spoil the interview. We'll get into it a little bit more. But what was interesting, I gave him the feedback. I said, what was trying to sell this to customers, you're basically saying, oh, yeah, this is the story we just kind of told. You're Nat Sherman. It's the same. So these guys bought it after they closed it down and all this stuff. And so basically you were selling Nat Sherman, but it's now called Ferio Tego. Enough time has.
What does that mean?
What do you mean?
Ferio Tego?
Ferio Tego. Let me bring it up, but I believe it's their family history. Let me see. It should be on the actual Ferio Tego, our story. It's the family crest kind of looking thing here.
That crest, that's the one on the Exclusivo and Generoso?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't believe it's on here at all.
No.
It's on there. Let's see if they say it here. I'll have to find it here, or maybe we can wait on that. It was interesting to talk to him about it, because I kind of thought that it helped, but also it only had so much clout, right? It was kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I've had Nat Shermans before. As people get to know Ferio Tego, they get to see and know Michael Herklotz, especially because, again, he's the face of it. It's Ferio Tego. The Nat Sherman stuff is kind of like a footnote, right? It's not necessarily going to be, this used to be Nat Sherman. Their new releases it has nothing to do with Nat Sherman. So this is now, you give it enough time, and that's the whole thing, is that Nat Sherman becomes part of the history, but that's not what these cigars are. So it's
well, the one thing I do appreciate, so a lot of these blends that exist under the Ferio Tego name are blends that Herklotz produced and made while he was with Nat Sherman. So when Altria shut down the Nat Sherman side and him and Brandon got the rights to the blends, he's all right. He blended this cigar originally for Nat Sherman. He knows what this cigar is supposed to taste like. So now he's blending the exact same cigar, just with a different name under a different label. That's it. He's trying to keep with this particular smoke, because you had mentioned there is one cigar he did tweak. With this particular smoke, this is not it. He's trying to keep this one the same as what it was when it was under the Nat Sherman name.
Yeah. So very enjoyable smoke. It was cool conversation. I'm glad I got to I met Michael Herklotz in person at a trade show, but we had a great conversation 2-3 years back. And then to have him in the store, I mean, he hung out for an hour and a half, and we just smoked the limited edition one they gave us first.
Oh, nice.
So that was kind of a nice special treat that they did that. And again, at Tinderbox at Easton, they just got in 10 boxes of 10 of that one. So they got 100 cigars of that limited run.
How much does that one run?
That one, if I'm not mistaken, it's closer to that 18.
All right, so not a shifty. Yeah,
not a shifty. No. $18 limited edition is not a gimme cigar.
Yeah, well, the limited edition makes it not a shifty too. Yeah,
but it's worth checking out, and as is this one. So, I'm looking forward to getting him back on and learn a little more. And you'll probably have some questions for him that maybe I had already talked to him about, and I think that'll make for some good conversation. Get him on remotely. Love to have him in the shop, but again, he's covering basically the whole country right now and more.
Yeah.
So, and we were going to have him at the Smoking 10 event, but it was a little too late getting him in. But he already said he's in for next year.
When did they start Ferio Tego?
21.
So all right, so it's not even 2 years old yet.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
and like the Generoso and the Elegancia, those are two cigars that are limited every year. They do a limited run, and his whole thing is that he's trying to project the best he can, that it would last in production for about a year until the next year comes out.
Okay.
So he puts out enough. It's like a small batch, right? He puts out enough, hoping that retailers can try them, as far as getting them in the store, and there's enough to reorder.
Mhm.
But the hope is to get through that year's supply, so that then he can go ahead and re-release the next year. Eddie Cooper says, "What's the price of the cigar that you all are reviewing?" MSRP of the Gordo size. Yeah, Nate just answered you on the feed there, around $14 MSRP. So,
and that's for the 660.
That's for the 660, but they're all in that range, right?
Okay.
Anything else? You have any questions about this?
No, I think you covered. I think you covered the smoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we drinking now? Because we poured a different bottle.
This is the Buzzard's Roost. This is the Ohio State Pick. OHLQ is what they go by, Ohio State Pick. And this is a single barrel.
So the one we were initially drinking is the barrel strength. So it's a blend of barrels and whatever that overall proof is.
Yeah. So this is barrel number 51208. Very specific on that. Bottle number 50 says batch SGL. So I wonder if that's single.
Yep.
And then the proof is 114.1. Very similar label on the front, just says single barrel instead of barrel strength in a different color. And of course, you got the OHLQ gold barrel pick sticker on there.
And on the back, it says aged at least 48 months.
Yeah, aged at least 48 months on the back. So,
yeah.
What do you think of that before we get to the ratings?
Yeah. So this is kind of what I was hoping the barrel strength was going to be closer to.
Yeah.
So when I got a bottle of the featured bottle, barrel strength rye, I got that because this is what I'd remembered.
Yeah.
This single barrel, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was a gift to you.
It was actually, yeah. It was a Christmas gift.
Yeah. So that's kind of the profile I was hoping for. And so, pour a glass of this. And then while you were talking about Ferio Tego and Herklots, I took my first sip of it and was like, oh gosh.
I saw the reaction. You wanted to jump in there and talk about it, but
no, I knew to bite my tongue. What
the big difference is for me?
Go for it.
It doesn't have, as you call it, like that ethanol.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't linger. It doesn't have that. It's more. It's almost, maybe the age is. It's more mature. It's got that well-rounded. Finishes
on the front of this. It's more bold. It's got a little bit more sweetness up front. But it doesn't have that ethanol that just kind of hangs in the back of the palate.
No,
it's just that rich, a little bit of sweetness up front, almost like a ripe cherry.
Okay.
And then it kind of transitions into a little bit of mint, and which the barrel strength kind of did that same thing. There wasn't a whole lot of sweetness up front, but it did transition into like that effervescence mint type on the finish.
Yeah.
But then that ethanol is what really hung around with the barrel strength. With the single barrel, you don't get that. And and like I said earlier, it's only 1.2 proof off. So 0.6% difference between the two bottles.
But it is a single barrel.
It's a single barrel instead of a blend.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me think even more so that the single barrel saying aged at least 48 months has more age on it than the barrel strength that we're featuring tonight.
Yeah. I would agree with a lot of that. I think it does have a little bit the slighter notes on this. The single barrel would be, you say sweetness. I get a little bit of that vanilla, a little bit more pronounced on it.
More pronounced. Yes, yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So
because like I said, I actually said on the barrel strength that it was kind of faint, but yes, more pronounced on the single barrel.
Yes, it's a nice flavor note there that's going to carry all the way through with that sweet vanilla, almost like straight like vanilla extract.
Yeah, it's not a caramel or butterscotch or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit softer of a sweetness.
It's like vanilla bean. It's not like that. Not like vanilla ice cream. It's like vanilla bean, vanilla extract. It's like straight vanilla.
Like vanilla with a little extra kick.
It's a nice flavor.
Yes.
Let's kind of go into, so those listening for the first time, we round out part 1 with a rating, and we do 3 ratings. And so it's out of 10, which is the best. We rate the whiskey, which is going to be the Buzzard's Roost Straight Rye Barrel Strength. And then the cigar, which is the Ferio Tego Timeless Panamericana. Put those up on the screen here. There's the Ferio Tego Timeless Panamericana we just discussed. And also the Buzzard's Roost Straight Rye Barrel Strength here. And we rate those. And then we do a third rating out of 10. It's going to be whiskey, cigar, and the pairing. Bobby Crow says that sweet, sweet, deep voice of Steve Vanilla Crane. I don't know if that's appropriate to say these days, but thank you.
You go first on the pairings this week.
On the ratings, you mean?
Or yeah, on the ratings.
Yes, sir.
Please.
The whiskey, Buzzard's Roost Straight Rye Barrel Strength.
Yes.
I'm going to come straight out with an 8. This one, it's good. I'm excited to go back to it and okay.
Add a little water.
Add a little water. That was the plan. If you guys are just tuning in, I suggested to Nate that we're going to do, finish off that first glass. We're going to pour the OHLQ pick straight. I don't think it needs any water for the flavor on that. And then we're going to go back to it for part 2, most likely here.
Yeah. Well, we're trying not to have 3 pours in the first hour of the show.
Fair. No judgments here. But go back to it and add some water. I'd say I'll rate it like this: 7.5 as is.
Okay.
And then 8, I guess, is going to be an 8 with a couple drops of water. So you have to stay tuned for part 2 to see if I'm correct on that.
So 7.5 based on the first glass.
Correct. A true sipping whiskey. It's not something, because it does have that lingering finish. It's not something that I'm going to keep going back to.
Okay.
So it's something that you take a sip of it, have a conversation, smoke a cigar, whatever. And so that first glass should take you a little bit longer because it does linger on your palate. You know what I mean? So you still have some of the flavor lingering. We talked about that kind of that minty, you call it ethanol type of a lingering sensation. So that's what I'll give a 7.5. And I think it'll soon be an 8. Just side note, the OHLQ pick, 9. The cigar, I'm going to give this cigar, for what it is, price, what they're trying to do with it, in my opinion, where it's trying to fall in their portfolio, 8.75. This cigar, I think, is kind of a nice medium plus, like we talked about. I think this cigar could be a nice cigar for most cigar enthusiasts, for most people that are getting into cigars. I think a lot of people will tend to gravitate towards this. If you're looking for a full-bodied, real kind of coffee bitter type of a full-bodied smoke, not for you. If you're looking for something mild, not for you. This is something that is kind of right there, middle ground. This is just a classic tobacco, cedary, just sensation. That's what I look at it as. So I think it's going to be 8.75. And so the pairing of the original, 7.
Okay.
I think this, again, the bottle that we're sipping on at the moment.
So you think the pairing knocks it all down?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's enjoyable. I think that the thing we keep going back to with the barrel strength, that lingering flavor, the lingering sensation of the bottle hinders the cigar, brings out too much of that cedar and the retrohale. It really is just kind of all working. It doesn't work as well together with what we're sipping on the single barrel, single barrel. It goes better. I would pair that. I would choose that pairing way with this cigar. I'll just heads and tails over that, So
yeah, and
go ahead.
Most of my ratings, I'm there with you. I do agree.
Did you want to see if the
single barrel
where I was at with it before you gave your ratings this week? Is that why you
I kind of did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're curious?
Yeah, because I wrote mine down.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was curious to see where you were. You know, a lot of times, especially if we have a guest sitting in
Yeah, I
between
go
us.
last.
Yeah, but a lot of times I'll write mine down before we start the ratings.
Sure.
But then I'll also cover them over because I don't want my ratings to necessarily have an influence on who's sitting next to me.
Sure.
But a lot of times, yes, a lot of times, either our guest will go first or I'll go first, and you round it out. Kind of wanted to flip that.
See a comment here.
Say,
Can we get a fair jury duty rating, Nate Hale? It's good.
I'll let you know.
He meant tonight, I think.
The fact that jury duty is preventing me from starting my new gig on Monday as planned, rating is a 0.
All right. So the Buzzard's Roost, straight rye,
so the
barrel strength.
So the original barrel strength, you gave it a 7.5. I'm at a 7.
Okay.
It was an enjoyable bottle, but definitely did not like it as much as the single barrel. I agree with you on the single barrel. Single barrel's a 9. Absolutely love the flavor on that bottle.
Oh, nice.
The OHL Q-Pick single barrel rye is what made me buy the barrel strength rye. So, and because I enjoyed the single barrel so much, while the barrel strength is still a good bottle, I was kind of let down because I was hoping it was going to be closer to the single barrel.
No, that's justified in my opinion. Yeah, for sure.
So, this isn't and coming in at $70 for this bottle, it's not going to be a bottle for everyone. It's not going to be the rye for everyone. But it's definitely worth trying if you're looking for a barrel strength rye, because there's not a whole lot of those out there.
So you'd say if you saw this at a bar,
have a pour.
There you go. Maybe not double.
Yeah, have a pour of this. See if you like it, and if this hits your flavor profile, then go back. And that's one of the segue. That is one of the cool things about my new gig, and that actually happened yesterday.
Yeah,
there was someone that was thinking about the Whistle Pig collaboration with Traeger, the grill company.
Yeah,
and it's a smoky barbecue type whiskey. And one of the gentlemen I work with actually recommended that person go to the bar, try a pour, because they were hesitant about the bottle.
That's a win-win. I mean, that's
so they went to the bar, had a pour of it, and then came back and bought the bottle. Because they're like, it had this nice smokiness, and then all of a sudden it had this chili pepper on the back end to it. And so then, they ended up buying a bottle.
All right.
This is definitely something worth at least having a pour if it's at the bar.
Maybe not dive in with a bottle.
Unless $70 is chump change to you. Yeah. So 7 on the bottle, on the barrel strength that we're initially featuring. I agree with you. 9 on the single barrel pick. That was an absolutely fantastic bottle. Cigar, I'm very similar with you. You were 8.75. I'm 8.5.
Okay.
It's a great smoke. I always enjoyed the Nat Sherman cigars when Herklotz was part of that, and this one is still what I remember from those blends. And I think that's a lot to do with how good of a blender and taste profile Michael Herklotz has, and how good of a blender he is.
Yeah.
That he can sit there and he still knows what he's looking for with that blend, and he can come back a couple years later and still make that cigar the way it used to be. And, I think that's something that, because there are a lot of companies out there that when they have these staple blends, they just do the same recipe batch after batch after batch after batch. With him going after a specific taste profile, I think it's harder to create batch after batch. So for him to sit there and come out with the blends under the Ferio Tego name, and they still line up with what they were as Nat Sherman, I don't think he gets enough credit for being able to do that as well as he has.
No, but I do sorry to interject, but he was in a position of the company that he had his hands, to our understanding, on creating this blend with Plasencia, creating some of the other blends with Quesada, and now, the Camacho factory in Honduras. So a little bit different. Not only like the company could have been like, yeah, you get to get all these things, I mean, like you and I go in, we buy all the Nat Sherman stuff, right? We want to do it. Well, we got to be able to have a relationship with the factories to be like, hey, what were the blends? Michael was to our understanding, was the one that actually had his hands on this, had the relationship, worked with them, knew what the tobaccos were, knew the people that were making it, in the factories. So there should be a little bit more of a continuation of the project in a good way.
Yeah. Pairing, I'm not as low as you. I'm an 8 on the pairing. I do think that the whiskey detracts a little bit from the cigar, but I also think this cigar holds up a little bit better to this whiskey than some other cigars would, because if you'd have sat there and said, hey, we're going to smoke a medium full body cigar, and we're going to drink it, or we're going to smoke it with 112.9, so call it 113.
Yeah.
We're going to smoke it with 113 proof rye whiskey. I don't think a lot of people would expect this cigar to stand up to that type of whiskey as well as this one does.
Yeah.
So 7 on the cigar, or 7 on the whiskey, 8.5 on the cigar, 8 on the pairing. I think it does. It's not the best pairing. I think it does knock it down just a little bit. I think the cigar is better than the bottle.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'm writing back to Bobby Crow here.
To his point.
So so he did say he can think of at least 10 bottles he would prefer at $70.
Oh, I was gonna ask, like, how does this cigar go with what we're drinking right now, which is the single barrel rye? Do you think it goes better?
I said it goes better, yeah.
Yeah, it goes better. Yeah.
No, I think it goes better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely goes better than that. Yeah. It is more enjoyable. The retrohale on this cigar is nothing to be messed with. I will say that. At least for me, I'm a little bit clogged up, but I mean, I can retrohale it through no problem. And it has, again, a lot of cedar and spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing to when you retrohale it, there's a lot coming to you at that point. No, Bobby asked, I don't know if I would go with a rye with this cigar. I was simply asking, have you smoked it, or are you basing that on our take based on what we're saying?
Fair question.
And he has had a lot of whiskeys, has a hell of a collection. He's had a lot. I don't know. I would assume, but I don't know. Again, if he hasn't had this bottle, I don't know if he's taking it off of what we're saying, or if it's something that he's stating based on how he described it. So we'll have to find out more of this. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in for part 1. This is where we transition over. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, where you can find the Ferio Tego line now. It is in stock as of yesterday, including this cigar in the Gordo size and the Bellicoso Fino size, along with some other great offerings from Michael Herklotz and Brendan Scott and Ferio Tego. Altadis USA, we got a H. Upman Nicaragua Heritage made by AJ Fernandez on deck here. That's a Churchill. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to finish that tonight, but we'll see what happens. And then also BS Cigar Company. The gold is made by Plasencia. The BS Silver is made by Espinosa. Both companies will be at the Tinderbox at Easton Smoking Tent event on March 18th. As of yesterday, unless something changes, all details are subject to change. Eric Espinosa will be appearing at the Smoking Tent event 2018. So that is something that we're really excited about. Not only he will be there, but again, Plasencia will be there. David Blanco from Blanco Cigars will be there.
Which we featured last week.
One of his cigars, the Above and Beyond. Also, Ricky Rodriguez with his brand new company, West Tampa Tobacco Company. Going to try to get him on the show in the upcoming months to lead up to the 10 event. So I'm going to try to get him on, try to get Blanco on. I'm going to try to get Eric, possibly at least for a little bit remotely. He's real busy right now, just like all these guys. And also Christian Aroa from CLE and Aroa Cigars. He's going to be at the 10 event. So yeah, the tickets are on sale now. We've sold almost half of the tickets in 6 days, but we're well over 100 tickets sold out of 250. So make sure you guys check that out. You can call the Tinderbox at Easton, or you can stop in the store, message me. We can get you all hooked up. But that's March 18th, and it's 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Big party. You get brunch, you get lunch, you get 14 plus cigars. You get to mingle with these guys. Killer raffle. There's going to be a Q&A session with Christian, Eric, Ricky, and David. So just a fantastic event. You and 249 of your best friends will be there along with us. So looking forward to that. Killer sales table as well. So just definitely check your calendars, see if you're available. If you're in the area or able to get in the area, I promise you, other than the weather, it's going to be a great day. We don't know about the weather. You never can that time of the year.
We won't know until the day before.
Lou's out there. He already got his ticket. He's coming up from out of town for that. Check out patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast if you guys want to contribute. There's 3 different tiers there, $5, $10, and $25. If you want to do a one-time contribution, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. Appreciate all that support. You guys are amazing. And then if you want some swag, also helps out the podcast, and you guys look good in it, buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS for all the shirts, sweatshirts, and 3/4 sleeves. Thanks, guys. This was fantastic. Thanks for all the participation from you guys out there in the audience. Cheers, Nate. Cheers to all you guys. Stay tuned for part 2. If you're listening on the audio, make sure you click over. If you're listening live, keep it going.
And then I promised Charlie Creekmore I'd show him the band a little bit.
Sure.
So
You're gonna get up in there. Yeah, Bobby Crow says for tax purposes, keep the donations under $600 because it is all kind of underneath. It's all through taxes, but like the Venmo, it is a business Venmo, so that'll help out a little bit with some of the fees and everything else. So, but I do have to pay taxes on all this stuff. It's all right. Part of doing a side business that you don't really make any money off of. But it does help out a tremendous amount with the monthly fees to stream it, to post it, and all that stuff. All the audio, you guys, it's live. So all the way up until last week is all available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many other platforms. I think I'm going to take a quick break if you want to talk to these guys for a moment.
Anyone else sitting outside smoking and drinking, or you guys just sitting inside and drinking? No, it's funny. At my new job, before I started, my new boss, because doing the wine tastings, it all depends on how many sales reps you have come in, but a lot of them will bring, 3 to 5 bottles of wine that they want you to try. And yeah, sometimes right there at the table as we're trying them, we'll put in an order for X number of cases. And they'll have different purposes. My boss goes, so I'm going to have to teach you how to spit, because if you sit there and swallow all the wine that you're going to sample in a day, you might be hammered by one. And I was like, well, I played baseball, so I'm pretty good spitting into a cup. So, but no, there have been times like last week where tons of reps came in and my boss sampled 40 different wines. And there was actually a couple that I had on Monday that, and Steve Kristen would probably appreciate this if she's listening. But there were a couple of wines that I sampled on Monday that are not within what I normally drink at home, but because they were very different varietals than what I normally drink at home, but they were the best things I tasted that day. And that day we probably had 10 different wines sampled, and there were a couple of them that just completely stood out to me. One of which my boss, who used to own a wine store for 20 years, he literally sits there, takes 2 sips of it, and he looks at the sales rep and he goes, "How much of this do you have?" Which, if you're a sales rep, that's a question you love to get. Like when I was a cigar rep, if the owner of a cigar store said, "How many boxes of this do you have?" Because I want them. Like that's a good question to get as a sales rep.
Absolutely.
But on the flip side of that, there are some where we'll sit there and we'll sample 3 to 5 different wines from that rep, because that rep works for a distributor, and we just sit there and we're like, yeah, they're good, but there's nothing that stands out. Like, how am I going to sell this? What am I going to sell it for? Because we have different wine tastings. Every month there are 8 different wine tasting lists available, 5 wines each. So at any given time, there are 40 different wines that people can try at the store.
It's fantastic. If you guys are in the area, definitely check it out. I think Chris and I are going to come up there maybe Sunday.
I won't be there.
That's why we're coming up on Sunday.
Damn.
Just kidding.
Jess will be there.
Is it this Sunday? Yeah, this Sunday.
Yeah, Jess will be there.
No, I don't know.
But no, the staff that is there, oh my gosh, they are so incredibly knowledgeable. One of the gentlemen, he used to run the wine club for Cooper's Hawk.
Yeah.
There's another lady there who is a certified sommelier, and she went to culinary school, and she used to teach wine and food pairings at culinary school.
Nice.
Which I expect to get a lot of those types of questions working there.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other gentlemen there that, they've been doing this for 20 years. So there's so much knowledge. And
so go when you're not working. What you're saying.
My job is to be on the sales floor.
Just kidding. I might come up on a Monday when you're working.
Okay. Well,
not while you're in jury duty. I understand.
Well, I would say you're better off coming on a Tuesday, but you work open and close on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Mondays and Thursdays, I'm usually out of there at like 6:00. So
I'm off on Mondays.
Oh, that's right. You are. Yes. Come on Monday.
Okay. Full circle here. Just a couple comments here. I don't know if you saw Ray Cheshire said, "Ooh, that's a Nat Sherman label." So yes, Ray, it is, as we explained. I don't know if I know you kind of come in and out a lot of times, just based on your mornings in Vietnam. But a quick summary. These are blends that Michael Herklotz had worked on when he worked for Nat Sherman. They sold out when they couldn't sell the company Nat Sherman Premium Cigars. They closed it down. Shortly thereafter, Michael and also the CFO, Brendan Scott, bought all of this stuff. They acquired all the brands and blends and names and marketing and stuff. So that's why it looks the same. He does have a new brand logo that shows up on the Ferio Tego stuff, all the new stuff. He's got a new one coming out, actually. So the Ferio Tego brand right now, the ones that just say Ferio Tego, none of the old Nat Sherman stuff, like the Generoso, like the Elegancia. There's going to be a third of that series coming out. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but there's a third coming out.
Oops.
I don't know what it's called, but it's going to be kind of in the middle of those two.
So it's not like
those are on the whatever you call it, super premium, whatever you want to classify.
$20,
$20+ on those. And so very good. So yeah, Ray says very cool. I love a lot of Nat Sherman. It is funny. Bobby Crow says he had so many jokes he'd love to comment about you spitting, which is funny, inappropriate, but funny. Thanks, Bobby. Good to have you on, man.
No,
he said
it's good to have you in the comments section.
Old me would make these jokes. Father of two me just acknowledged that someone could make these jokes. That's you're maturing. I like that. That's nice to see.
Took them long enough. I still remember the time Bobby got into it with a regional VP of Giant Eagle in the liquor store. He told that story on the
He
podcast.
did tell that story on the podcast. That's good.
I was with him when that happened. I was sitting there trying to laugh under my breath.
I would have laughed out loud. All right, you ready for part 2 here?
Yes.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 256, and this is part 2, Beyond the BS, and we are still smoking the Ferio Tego. This is a long smoke. I mean, it's a 6x60. And like we commented in part 1, it's the Timeless Panamericana by Ferio Tego. Well-constructed cigar. Again, we're smoking the 6x60, not typically our size of choice. I don't think for either of us.
No.
Yeah.
Typically, we're Robusto, Toro, Corona Gorda, Lonsdale.
Yeah, 54 is kind of the normal for me as a daily smoke as far as ring gauge. It's bigger than that. But I mean, even the BS Gold and the Silver come in at 58. But, 60, there was a time when I was digging in like the nub Habanos and, like some of these 60 ring gauges was like the thing when I first like really cut my teeth in the cigar smoking back in like 2008 when I really got into it. So I've definitely kind of come back the other way a little bit. Lancero's not really my size either.
I love Lanceros.
Yeah, not really my size. So
we're neither one of us are 70, 80, 90.
Ring gauge, no, for certain. So yeah, we're gonna be smoking that from part 1 still. We got a H. Upman, Nicaragua. This is the Heritage from Alta. This is one of our sponsors, so we appreciate the support from them and Josh Bentley.
That was my number 1 new blend of 2022.
Nice. So thank you, Altadis USA, for the continued support, and Josh Bentley doing all that hard work on there. Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They supplied the Timeless Panamericana from Ferio Tego, and also check them out. I know you guys listen on the live feed, probably tired of hearing this, but if you are just listening to part 2 right now, didn't listen to part 1, the Smoking 10 event, 10th annual Smoking 10 event is March 18th, 2023, Saturday in Columbus, Ohio, right behind the Tinderbox at Easton in a large tent structure. You can find that information. I'll share it to I did share it to the community page. I'll share it to the podcast page as well, but you can check that out on Facebook especially and Instagram as well, Tinderbox at Easton, and also on my personal stuff for sure. And if you haven't joined the Bourbon and BS community page, definitely check that out as well. Great community. I forget, we're like 1,600 members, and I'd love to see that grow. So if you guys...
We've had a few new people. I know I've had a couple people come into the Tinderbox and ask and, talk about it. And they've reached out and, accepted them into it. And
so yeah, definitely. And invite people to it. So you find out some stuff there.
As long as you don't try and sell or flip anything.
Yeah. We don't like that. So thank you guys very much there. The 10 event tickets are on sale. About half of them are available. So about 150 are left after less than the first week. We sold almost 150 of them. It's just fantastic. We appreciate that kind of response from everyone, especially 10 years later, not including the COVID years. So, I mean, it's been great. Been absolutely wonderful. And the BS Cigar Company, gold and silver available. What do you want to say?
There was like 60 or 70 people bought tickets in the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
It was great.
Wonderful response. If you guys like the swag, not my sweater, but the blue hoodie underneath, and then also what Nate's got on, the Barrelhead logo on the black camo. You don't have to dance like that, Nate, or anyone wearing it, but go ahead. Feel free.
Helps.
Buyjack.com/bourbon and BS for all the swag. It is printed and then sent straight to you, so it's easy to order, and we love that. I was in the post office today, and Pam behind the counter, she had bought a couple things for her son-in-law.
All right.
And I'm not saying this because it was funny. She is a sweet lady, and then Scott, who they're both going to retire this year. Scott's been there for 36 years. Pam's been working for the post office for 30 years.
Okay.
And it was funny because Scott was giving her a hard time, and it was, comments about my voice and stuff like that. And it was funny because she's like, yeah, I didn't tell you this before, but, I told my son-in-law about your store, and, that because I got him, I think, one of the T-shirts and maybe that sweatshirt. And she said, I can't believe I'm telling the story. It makes me look stupid, but it was funny because she's like, yeah. And I told his wife, I was like, no, don't go in there with him. And she's like, why? She's like, because That's Steve.
That's happened in the store before.
And it was just funny because then she said, "Well, maybe I'll have to go in with them."
Yeah.
It's just
There have been times where couples have walked into the store and ladies
I told Pam, I was like,
yeah.
Pam, don't tell her that because now he's not going to come in. No, it was just funny.
He's going to come in
people.
sizing you up.
But no, the funny thing is that I wear a lot of the swag that's available on buyjack.com/bourbonandbs to the store, which then I go to like places like the post office. I wear stuff in the gym. People comment about it. Where'd you get that? You know, and I explain it to them, and it's just it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the shirt on today that I had, you know, I've worn in the gym before, and it's when the world hands you some BS, light it up, and people love it.
Do you get more comments on the t-shirts or the hoodies?
That hoodie people like. The BS one that I have on, it's just a cool hoodie. People just, I mean, it's kind of like a lot of companies have that, like a lot of like breweries, and it's kind of like the style. But t-shirts, definitely. The pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. I get comments on that because people like stand, like they like, especially at the store and stuff. They'll stop and start reading it, and they're like, "Oh, I like that."
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, "Where'd you get that?" Other times she's like, "Oh, I like that shirt," and I'm just like, "Well, you can get one too."
Yeah.
Come off as a salesman, but yeah. So buyjack.com/bourbonandbs.
It's come up a few times in my new gig.
Nice. Wear them to Carfagnas. Fantastic.
No, I don't wear them. I don't wear them there. I wear different attire when I'm at the store.
We'll come up with a polo.
But just in the conversation, because there's a lot of people that come in and they hang out in the bourbon corner, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, I'll talk about, oh yeah, we just featured that on our podcast, and yeah,
that's nice. Yeah. I love it. So part 2 is where we kind of change gears here a little bit. Have a topic, and this one, just like last week, and I'm going to keep pushing for people from our community listeners. You can even email bourbonandbspodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out to, you know, message the Instagram page, the Facebook page. You can even contact me if you have my personal social media as well. But if you have any things for part 2, the topics, and I'm going to keep putting it on the community page and the podcast page. We had one from Bobby Hirschman last week. Ray Cheshire threw me some ideas this time, and here's what it is. It's making time for others. He said, everyone always talks about work-life balance, which we've talked about on the show before, but he says, but who realistically has that, and is it achievable? Everyone's idea of this concept is probably different, but there has to be space for life outside of the job. And he said you could also phrase it as making time for others. So that's the topic tonight for part 2, and we're looking for you guys commenting as well. And Ray, I think, is listening still. He said he was going to be. He was. I'm reading some.
Yeah, he had just commented on someone else's post, so Ray should still be listening.
Yeah. I messaged him. He still is, and he just commented. So Nate, so making time for others. We've talked about the work-life balance. You've had a lot of that recently with the career change, and obviously you know the importance of that. But I mean, you for one, you know, married and you guys no kids, but now you're living with her mother. So I mean, you've got the family unit of sorts, you know, at home, and you and Jess work. I
just drove her to the airport this morning at 5
o'clock. Got rid of her.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just get out of town. You're out.
Yeah.
Plane ticket.
Last year, my mother-in-law's birthday plans kind of got toasted because 4 days before her birthday, she had an aneurysm. So
that's right.
Currently, one of her sisters and husband is down in Florida. So she's going down to Florida for 10 days. And so drove her to the airport this morning.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
It's kind of a makeup for what she missed last year. I
think it's great. But when it comes to, you know, the work-life balance, you know, who realistically has that, and is it achievable? I like how Ray follows up with everyone's idea of this concept is probably different, but there has to be space for life outside the job.
Or jobs.
You work 2 jobs, and you work not quite every day.
Well, so with the new gig, I will finally go back to actually having a day off. However, that day off is podcast day.
Yeah, well,
So
it's not really a job.
Still, it's work.
It's an obligation.
Okay, yeah. But no, so because the staff at the Tinderbox is rather small, and that's not a short joke. There's a lot of us do work a lot of hours, even part-timers.
Yeah.
I mean, we have one person that works one night a week, but then the rest of us, prior to me starting my new job, we were all working at least 3, 4, 5 days a week at the shop. And so back towards the end of 2021, when Josh, the other full-timer at Tinderbox, started, that kind of changed the schedule a little bit.
Sure.
And so for just over a year, yes, I've been 7 days a week. I'm working at least one of the two jobs.
Yeah.
Now with this job starting, my new boss intentionally gave me Wednesdays off to be able to do the podcast. Although part of me was sitting there going, give me
Thursday.
You could have scheduled me Thursday off.
I can work daytime. I'm cool with that. I couldn't work Wednesday nights, but I'm cool with that. I'll give you Thursday.
But at least I don't have to go until 10 o'clock on Thursday.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yep.
Same hours.
Similar hours.
Yeah, same hours, 10 to 9.
Well, yeah.
But
I'll thankfully.
But no, I'll finally get a day off. The only bad side about that is it's a Wednesday, so my wife is still working her regular job.
Yeah, it's tough because, and Ray made a comment there is that, and he is currently retired, but he said he came up with the topic, while sitting out on the balcony with my wife after dinner, while she sat catching up on emails after a day of back-to-back meetings.
Yeah, because he's retired and his wife's still working.
Yeah. And he follows it up with, my wife is lucky enough to love her job, but let me put it up on the screen here.
That makes it so much easier.
But they just keep loading her up with more and more responsibility, which means more cross-functional meetings and less time to do the day-to-day stuff. That's a tough point. I think that is something that, luckily with your jobs, they're time consuming, but there's not as much take home work. Right now you're studying, right? But there's not as much take home work.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough now I get a little bit of that just because of social media, and I do have everything linked to my phone, but not to like what Jane's level is, or like, Kristen, my girlfriend, she works from home, but she works with people that are mostly in the US, but across the US, and then occasionally other countries. And so she has to be able to structure her day accordingly as well. So it is a little different based on that. So I think maybe that's part of what Ray may be kind of alluding to or including in this, is that, stuff like that is, she's off work, but is she ever off work? I mean, that she, again, lucky enough to love her job, but as he says, there's always a but there, where it's like, yeah, you love your job, but we've talked about that on the show before, is that, yeah, people say, oh, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Bullshit.
It does become work, and it does, well, I guess, intervene into like real closely your everyday life. Outside of it, there are things that you'll have to miss. There are times where the phone will ring. Ray says she's never off work. I will say this, that's okay, as long as it's working for what else is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that, when you talk about your schedules, Nate, with my girlfriend and I being together now for over a year, we've had these conversations where it's like, she's like, well, you work Tuesday, open to close, and then you have the podcast, I have to work on Wednesday. And then during some of the year, like Thursday nights, I play softball. So like my availability for like hangout time, and we don't live together at this point, so that's even more of a dynamic there.
Yeah.
So we don't just see each other around the house. Thursday night, sometimes Friday night for sure, and then it's Sunday, and then she works Monday, so Monday night. So basically, you have these like little windows of time that have that. Luckily, I'm not always working, but my point is that you try to make everything work, and as long as you can have conversations about what you're feeling to yourself. Take the relationship out of just, are you okay with your current work situation? Even if you love your job, are you sacrificing other things? I know I've known people. I know one in particular right now that it's like they're in a certain age of their life, and it's like, yeah, they'd like to be dating someone, but they really
don't have the time for it.
It's not number one. They're okay on their own, but they'd be open to it. But it's like, how do you do that when your hours are basically, their free time is maybe Friday night and Sunday during the day?
Well,
but then they work, they're booked every other night. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about someone else. And it's just like, it's one of those things where it is tough to me. You still have to put yourself out there. But it's tough to, if you're happy working certain hours, you're happy being with your career at that moment.
Yeah.
But then something else starts creeping up in your priority level.
Yeah.
How does that balance out? And I think that's really important, because as people have kids, or like, in this situation, like Ray and his wife, he makes those comments, and they're all basically in conversation in regards to this. But there's plenty of those situations out there, not whether it's the husband, the wife, or whoever it is in the relationship, someone's where it's okay until it's not. Mm-hmm. And then how do you communicate that? It's like, well, it was fine, but now the person doing and always being demanded at work, and so you don't have that personal life balance, or the other party involved, if there is one, they're like, you're never available. We can't do anything anymore. Like, this was supposed to be temporary while we're doing this, and now it's been fast forward 5 years, and it's like, this isn't necessarily healthy. You have to have this balance, the work home life balance. It's a tough one to keep consistent, because peaks in the season, whatever your career is too, whatever your occupation is, you have the peak season when I'm unavailable. Yeah. Like December for me, it's tough.
Well,
and that was tough for
you with the tinderbox. There are times, like in the retail setting of a cigar shop in the Midwest, this is kind of the slower time. How, slower in the sense of the number of customers coming into the store. However, you've been working your ass off for the 10 event. Mm. So even though the store is slow, you're still busy getting things ready for the 10 event.
Sure. It's a different type of busy.
Yeah, exactly. So back in the time when I was a cigar rep.
I wanted to comment before you go to the story. Sorry.
Go ahead. That
was very much apparent too. And Ray says, to be fair, this isn't about me. I'm sorry, Ray. I wasn't trying to make it about you. I know, we've had conversations. You guys are doing amazing out there. I love it. But it was the same thing for me during the COVID time, like the lockdowns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where that spring and then summer, as we went through that, you would think it's like, oh, that was slow because you were shut down, and then everyone with the mask, and like what. I was working, we went over this in previous podcasts back then, whereas like I was actually busier because I had to be available all the time through social media, through email, through text messages, through all that stuff. So I was actually, oddly enough, putting more, I guess, time into that instead of just my shifts at the shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, the occasional text or email or whatever. It was like, no, it was, yeah, all the time going. And that's kind of how it is right now. It's funny. One of our customers today, Rusty, he was sitting there smoking, and everyone else had left the shop middle of the afternoon. And I'm on the phone with one of the reps talking about Smoking 10 event. And he kind of like looked at me and like laughed. And I'm like, what was, because I hung up, and I'm like, what was that about? He's like, people don't see what goes on behind the scenes. They come in, they see you, they think that, oh, this is the easiest job. And he just, and I won't say what it is, but I mean, he has a company.
Yeah.
And now he just bought into a restaurant that reopened. And he's like, no, we're closed Sunday and Mondays, but those are the busiest days, because that's when we're doing all the inventory. That's when we're stocking. That's when we're doing all this stuff to prepare. He's like, those are the busiest days for me, because I'm running around town and all that stuff. People don't see that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you would think that, Sunday and Monday, you guys are off, you're just doing whatever. I learned that yesterday. I try to do that the best I can on my days off, you know what I mean? But there are times where it's like on Mondays, there are times I go in because I have to ship something out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Go ahead.
I learned a little bit of that yesterday at my new job. I mean, because with what my position is at my new job, on Monday when I showed up, I was wearing a collared shirt and a sport coat because that meets kind of what my new job is going to be about. But then Tuesday is a day where we receive a lot of orders. And so you don't necessarily want to be putting orders away while you're wearing a sport coat. You just don't have the dexterity and flexibility.
Make sure it's nicely tailored.
Literally, I was informed by my boss, here, wear the company sweatshirt.
It's nice.
Yeah. But because and my first day on the new job, I actually, like I said, I showed up in a collared shirt and a sport coat. And I was looking around and I was like, I feel like I'm really overdressed because my boss is wearing a sweatshirt with the company logo on it. Everyone else is wearing polos with the company logo on it. And here I am in a sport coat. And I actually said it to him. I was like, I feel like I'm overdressed for the team. And he actually goes, no, you're what I want to get this business back to.
Oh.
So the days where we're bringing in orders, here, wear the sweatshirt because you're going to be putting stuff on the shelves. You're going to be carrying boxes. Yeah. Wear that. Saturdays, that's a busy day. That's a busy day for us at that type of retail establishment. Yeah. The fact that you're wearing a collared shirt and sports coat, that's what I want. I want to get back to that. Yeah. But when you were talking about the lead-in for this, it reminded me of back when I was a cigar rep. So I was on the road Monday morning. I would leave my house around 8 o'clock on Monday morning. I'd come home sometime Friday night. Yeah. And then on Saturday, I had Saturday, Sunday basically off. And what was I doing on Saturday?
Yeah, that you're at cigar shops.
I was going to cigar shops that were in town. So I was going to a Tinderbox at Easton or a different cigar shop or shops. And I was hanging out in the store during my day off. And it was easier at Tinderbox at Easton because Easton's a giant mall. I could go hang out at the Tinderbox. My wife could go and, shop or go to the stores and stuff like that. And even though it was a day off, I still brought in all my cigars. There were staff members that they would actually direct customers to me to answer questions about product. And I was doing that because that was something I loved. That was something I enjoyed doing. So even though it was a day off, I was still, quote unquote, working because I was trying to push product. Because if I push product, the store would have to buy more.
You also liked hanging out in cigar shops.
I also like hanging out in cigar shops.
If you did that now and where we're at, knowing each other like we do now, I would have been like, dude, you're not allowed in here on Saturdays. Go do something for yourself or with your wife. Like, yeah, you're like, I will throw you out of the store.
That actually did become a slight point of contention.
Not slight.
You don't know how much Jess brought that up. All right.
I believe it was slight in bringing up, but I don't think it was slight in contention.
Fair.
I will venture to say that. I'll venture to guess that.
Fair. But no, after a couple months of doing that, she would then say something to me about like, this is the weekend. You're off. You're home. Let's do something together that's not inside a cigar shop.
That's not slight. That's fucking obvious. That's blatant.
Yeah. Charlie Creekmore says
this whiskey is better with drops of water.
Absolutely is.
It kills that ethanol sensation. Not quite not close to where the single barrel was, but it is.
But you were right. Adding a few drops of water does bump it up.
Yeah, I went from 7.5 to 8.
Yeah, you were right on that.
Been doing this a little bit.
But no, I was so passionate and I enjoyed what I was doing so much that I wanted to hang out in that environment. Now with my new job, that doesn't mean that on my days off, I'm going to go hang out at the store. That's a little harder to hang out at that store and quote unquote work.
No, but
you
go to like the wine tastings, you can go up there, but yeah, I would encourage you not to.
Yeah. So what I had to learn back then that has been applied to now or even recently is the time when I'm not at work, while it may be limited and few, make the best of that time. Like that's what I have not put as much focus on in the past.
Yeah.
That now I have the opportunity to focus on more. And however, a month and a half ago, my wife picked up a part-time job at the same place that I now work. So there's 3 of us in the household. All of us work 2 jobs. Now, I don't care what my mother-in-law's schedule is. That really doesn't affect me that much. It's more just what me and my wife's schedule is.
Yeah, Ray says, I understand just totally. If you have little time to spend with loved ones, make it count.
Yes.
And I want to get to, when you're done, I want to get to a couple comments that are on here.
Yeah, so that's because this is a new venture, that's something that we have to work out. That's something that we have to find our way through. We know there's going to be some issues at the start. We just have to figure that out as we go. We know it's different. However, I'm truly, I think I'm blessed and I'm thankful that I have a partner that is understanding, because when you get down to it, I'm a worker. I want to work. I want to do something. I want to provide for my family. The good thing is she's kind of the balance of that equation. She knows when I've been pushing myself too much and not focusing too much on other aspects and neglecting others. She's good to remind me that there are other things that I need to balance out the equation on. But she's also not going to come down too harshly on me for wanting to work and put in the hours and put in the effort. So even though there are nights where, like right now with my new job, there's a lot of things I need to learn and read up on. But it's how do we make that something we can both do? So there are times now where, we can sit down together and we're both learning the same material.
That's work though. That's still work. Here's what I'll say to this, ahead. Right? And I'm going to bring up some of these comments, but it would be astonishing. And I'm not a counselor by any means, but I wish I had heard this a little bit, not for any other reason, because I think it would be beneficial to myself and other people. When you get to it, and especially in a relationship, right? We're talking relationships a lot because a lot of people are in relationships, but I mean, this happens individuals as well that are single or whatever.
Yes.
But for the couples out there, if you treated, like where you're like your me time or whatever it is, right? So you time out of work, the work-life balance, and people have hobbies like going to cigar shops, drinking whiskey, doing these things, all that stuff. If you treated your relationship sometimes just at the same effort in your personal time as a hobby,
damn,
that would be so beneficial to so many couples out there.
Yeah.
That if you looked at, and I'm not saying your relationship is a hobby, I'm saying the level of effort that you put into a hobby, the money you spend in a hobby, whatever it might be, the time you spend into a hobby, especially if you don't share that hobby or interest with someone that you're with, but you treat the relationship at the same level of interest and dedication as you are your hobbies. Oh my God, I feel as though you would realize I don't like that hobby, one, and that would be one way to figure it out. Or you say, oh my God, I do need to treat this more like a hobby. I need to put more effort into it, more interest into it. I need to put more dedication into this thing, because that is a lot of your personal time. And I think that is a big thing. If you share the hobby, that's completely different. If you guys enjoy learning about wines, learning about this stuff together, that's fantastic. Go to wine tastings together, not Carfagna's. Go somewhere else. Have your own, like you do with Steak and Wine Sunday. You do those things. That is like when you do your Steak and Wine Sundays. I know sometimes people will not anymore, but when you first started doing it, they were kind of razzing you a little bit on social media.
Oh, I still get that every now and then.
It's like, no, I'm investing into the hobby that I share with my wife.
Yes.
I'm spending this time with them because we enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really think that aspect of investing into your hobbies just as if you were investing into your relationship, and you keep that balance, that's a huge thing.
Well, and now,
realize which hobby's more important.
Well, and now that my wife's secondary job is my primary job, that's something that we share.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it used to be that most weeks the only bottle of wine we would crack is on Steak and Wine Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, because we're both invested in that industry, that's something we actually do more often throughout the week, but we do it together.
See, that's good. It's time.
So even though it may be a hobby, because it's something we both do, it's both work and research, but it's something we enjoy. Love
that, Bobby. And I'm going to get to
go ahead.
The different Bobby and Ray. We need to do that, but Bobby says exactly what you're saying, Steve. Is why Pam and I work. We both invest in what we love, and I love seeing that, because
I think what's also important is her second job, my primary job, my secondary job, whatever. Even though there may be some similarity to that can't be the focus all the time.
You guys,
we have to spend some time where it's about us and not the hobby or the job.
You had the not unique. It happens all the time. You guys met at work. So, I mean, that is a dynamic in your relationship. But
we met at work, and now we're, it was funny. The other night she was I was in the morning through the day. She came in at night. We were in the shop together. We were only scheduled in the shop together for a half an hour. Ended up being a little bit more than that because I needed to stay over in order to help the people that were there. But yeah, it's one of those all right, you're in. Nice seeing you. I'll see you at home. Bye.
Yeah, for now.
The key is, and I think this goes back to Ray's original suggestion for the topic, is we need to figure out, and I think we've done an okay job. There's going to be some tweaks as we go forward. The time that neither one of us are at work, we need to figure out how we're going to spend that time.
Agreed.
Are we going to focus on work, or are we going to focus on each other?
Yes.
But sometimes the focusing on each other may include the hobby. It may include work, but how do we make that work while also benefiting our relationship and each other?
That's exactly right. You guys, interested to see how that goes, because I think that you guys will handle it really well. I think there's some comfort there with you guys working together in a sense. I think there's a level of comfort there that you guys have this common work thing, where before she would go to cigar shops with you and hang out and all that stuff.
Because that was my work.
Exactly. That's
not hers.
And
yeah. But we still need to figure out, and yes, it's something that we're going to learn as we go. We need to figure out the time that neither one of us are at work. How do we benefit? How do we do something?
How do you invest in that time? Yeah.
Away from it.
Ray commented towards me. He said he also considered me when putting this idea forward. With the Tinderbox social media marketing, the 10 event upcoming, and of course the podcast, there must be a limited amount of quote free time to devote to others. You're right, and that is something that I think that communication. I'll leave that up there for a moment here, and then we'll get to some of Bobby Crow's comments as well. He's got some good ones. Ray, I mean, you're absolutely right. This is something that has been a struggle. Personally, it was a struggle. 2020, stuff like that, where it was, I fell into the similar thing that a lot of people do, where it's like you focus on that. I think 2020 was a little different because it was like no one knew how to handle what was going on. You know what I mean? So it was just like we're all kind of surviving at that point, not COVID surviving, no offense, but it was like more like COVID situation surviving.
Yeah.
But it was like that was part of it. With what we're doing now, my biggest thing, and this podcast does help me to a point. Sometimes and joking, but it hurts me because I'll say something on the podcast and then, my girlfriend will listen to the podcast because she supports us and, what we do here. She loves the community. She loves like guys like Ray and Bobby and the other Bobby and Tim. Like she knows these names. She's invested into my interests. I'll say something on podcast and she's like, well, what did you mean by that? I feel like it's like you're saying this because I'm like, no, I said it on the podcast, but it wasn't about like me or us, you know what I mean? It was like about that, but I think there's always a little bit there that, it's because people have been through certain things that you do have some knowledge or you've learned from it. With this at hand, Ray, absolutely. I mean, this is something that, in my current life situation, there are some non-negotiables that I talked about recently. And that's, some of the things is I still go to the gym. I go to the gym at different times. I want to go to the gym 5 days a week. A lot of weeks, it's 4 days a week. But again, I'm not going to give that up. I'm not just going to be like, I'm not going to go to the gym because I'm so busy. I want to spend time with my girlfriend. I want to spend time with friends. I want to go, do my hobbies. It's like, well, one of my lifestyle hobbies is the gym, and I'm not going to give that up because I know I will not be the same person, and that will affect me in a very negative way. The time with my girlfriend, Kristen, that has been more of a point through my relationships in the past that I've learned that that's very important, that when you don't cross paths at work, you don't have these similarities there, is that those free moments, whether it be just the fact that, she spends the night here, because again, we don't live together. So like on my long days, she comes over, on Tuesdays and Saturday nights. And it's like that time at home is important. Where before I was in a relationship, I'd be, all right, well, I'll just see what anyone's doing, or maybe I'll just pop next door for a pint at the pub, you know what I mean? Or come home. But it's like, I have tried my best to do it as best I can to put my free time, put her and I first, equally to me first as well. But putting me first is putting us together as well. So it is challenging, but I think that's always the case. It's, for me, it's more the schedule side of things, is that free time to devote to others. Tim Dodge said something about, like helping out other people and putting yourself out there as service and all that stuff. You guys might laugh at this, but I do look at this night as something that I get a lot out of. I enjoy my time, used to be with Jake, and for the last several years now, it's been with Nate and other people that they're not here tonight because it's cold as shit. But, it's like when people are here, you guys out there across the country, across the world, it's like, this is the time where I'm not providing a service. I'm providing a platform for all of us to hang out and do this. And it's a scheduled thing. Yeah. We don't start it on time most weeks, but you know what I'm saying.
But you also have, I mean, and we've talked about this in the past. If you want to be better with those that are close to you and important to you, sometimes the first step towards that is being a better you. So, you talk about going to the gym as often as you do. That's important to you because it makes you a better version of you. Because when you do that, you are then a better you with that other person.
Well, and that's something that I strive to do, and I encourage everyone. And Ray says, can you really have non-negotiables when it comes to maintaining a healthy relationship? Absolutely. Yeah. Because non-negotiables are not only, it's not just this all-inclusive thing where it's like, if they upset me, I'm out. If they disagree with me, I'm out. It's, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship? Because if you don't define those, then they don't have anything. Like the counterpart has nothing to. They don't have a scale. They don't know what they're dealing with. If you are constantly changing your opinion on stuff, you have to have, when you're your best self, or you have the most confidence in who you are. So that's one of those things where it's like your non-negotiables is that if you're honest with yourself about that, and then you're honest with your partner about that, I'm not saying you call it off because they question it. I'm saying that again, this is just one thing. I want to go to the gym so many times a week.
Mm-hmm.
They start saying, well, it's like, well, I just feel like you put that first. And I'm like, so I'm not putting it first. I'm just, it's on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a non-negotiable for me. So what would work best for you? Like when would you want me to go to the gym? When would this work for us? This is something that I need to do for me. Something like, for a lot of us out there in this community, you either enjoy whiskey, you enjoy cigars, but it's like your non-negotiable in a relationship is like, I enjoy cigars. You don't have health problems or anything else. The only thing is that you smoke cigars. This is something that I've had conversations with a lot of people about. It's like, it's like I smoke cigars, and as soon as they get in a relationship, like, well, she doesn't really want me to smoke cigars. And it's like,
been there.
That is either a non-negotiable or it's not. So again, you define what those non-negotiables are, and you figure that part out. Because if it is a non-negotiable in your mind, but you don't express that, or you don't admit it to yourself, that's going to come back. So that is important, in my opinion, Ray, is that is something that, what do you say? Can you really have non-negotiables when it comes to maintaining a healthy relationship? If you don't do that, it won't be a healthy relationship, because it will show its head at some point.
Well, I think if there's something that you're really passionate about, and the other party doesn't want you to do that, then you're kind of losing part of who you are. You're sacrificing part of yourself for the sake of the relationship. And sometimes when you do that, there's a resentment there. And you may hold that against that other party.
That's exactly what I said.
And
it'll rear its head.
Yeah. The lady that I dated before I met Jess, I learned early on in our relationship that she was not a fan of smoking anything at all. And so I kind of hid the fact that I was a cigar smoker.
Yep.
And after we'd been dating for a little bit, I eventually brought that up, that I do smoke cigars. And that was a point of contention for her. And I was willing to make some adjustments in that area, but not completely cut it off. And
you wouldn't be on the podcast.
And
you wouldn't have been a cigar salesman.
You're right.
You wouldn't work in a cigar shop.
I wouldn't work in a cigar shop either.
So that's the point.
And I brought that up. Eventually I did come forward and tell her, like, no, this is part of who I am. This is something I enjoy. It's something I enjoy doing. It's not just for me. That's my social interaction with other people. And that was something that she couldn't handle. And in her mind, that became, as the way she told me, that was the breaking point. But I know honestly it was something else in the relationship, that there were other issues.
Sure. But to the point I made was, that's exactly what was used as a problem, is because you weren't honest with yourself with your non-negotiables. Yeah, I didn't. You were being someone you're not.
Yeah.
That's my point. Non-negotiables are important, because yes, that relationship may not work, but as long as you communicate about those things, like, you know what, I don't mind that you smoke cigars. I don't want you doing it all the time. Like, in your free time, when we have a day off together and all you want to do is go sit in the garage, or you want to sit out back, or you want to go to a cigar shop, like that's a problem for me, because you'd rather smoke cigars than spend time with me. That's a problem. If you don't have a problem with me working in the industry, you don't have a problem with me, enjoying a cigar while we're sitting on a patio together drinking wine, like you and Jess or whatever, that's better. If it's like, just, I don't want you smoking cigars, you're just like, that's a problem. If it is a non-negotiable,
and
which it sounds like you did, you sacrificed that, or you hid it, and then you finally exposed it, and she's like, well, that's the problem here. Well, she knew.
Yeah.
People aren't that stupid.
There were other
Some
issues.
people are
there
stupid.
were other issues that were far greater than that. But
I'm not trying to air the laundry of.
No. When Jess and I first moved into where we live at now, the previous people that lived there didn't really utilize the 3 Seasons room on the back, and they just let their dogs run out, and that was all it was ever used for. When we first moved over there, and it was in the springtime, I was going out there, I was smoking cigars, I was having a drink or two of whiskey, but I very quickly, within that first week, realized, like, as much as I enjoy this, I can't do this every night.
Yeah.
Because if I'm sitting out here on the patio every single night, smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, drinking wine, whatever it is, I'm not spending that time with my wife. Wasn't a girlfriend, it was with a wife. So I had to make a balance between the two. Like, there are some times where, yes, I will go outside and I will enjoy those things. But then there are other nights where I may want to do those things, but I know that our relationship is more important than those. So I need to spend time with her rather than just sitting outside by myself.
Absolutely. And that's what I think I think everyone's kind of on the same page here. Sure. You might want to go out there because Tony's already freaking out. Hang on, let me scroll down. I'm gonna get a couple of comments here with Bobby. Yeah, so Bobby Crow is commenting on here. I think non-negotiable are just like ultimatums. I agree with Ray Cheshire, but I think people's definitions of words can confuse the other person, thoughts and feelings. I think people get their feelings and expectations mixed and don't understand the other person's feelings. And then Ray follows up with, it is an ultimatum, but needs to be addressed early in the relationship for sure. And I think that's kind of what we were talking about with Nate, with what he was saying there, is that it's not an ultimatum. So if you are not portraying your honest self early in a relationship, to Ray's point, it will do what I was trying to say. It'll rear its head. It'll come to pass, and you're not being yourself. So you can't be truly with someone if you're not being yourself. I'm not saying that something like what we're talking about, smoking cigars, is a non-negotiable for everyone. You have to realize what you're willing to sacrifice from when you're not in that relationship or with your own self. Like, you have to, when I say non-negotiables, this is not playing hardball for a job. This is just, it applies to jobs as well, is what is going to make you happy. Because in the relationships like we're talking about here, is that if you're honest with what makes you happy, and you do meet someone like Ray's saying early on in the relationship, and you are able to talk it through, or you hide something, those two paths are very, very different. If a non-negotiable for you, and some things change as time goes on as well. So what might be a non-negotiable for you early on is like, we're just using cigar smoking, obviously, as we're talking about this. It's like, yes, cigar smoking, like, I smoke cigars. And that person's like, yeah, that's not really for me. I'm not into it. It's like, all right, well, are you willing to give up cigars for that person? Or are you just trying to be with that person as best you can, and you're just going to hide the fact that you smoke cigars? That's not a healthy or successful way to do it. That is something that there's no balance. And we've definitely gone off the work-life balance here at this point. It's so funny how this part 2 works. Bobby, no, he didn't. It's guy time, man.
We're not shaking hands, Bobby.
But I will say, with Bobby Crow saying that, non-negotiable is just like an ultimatum. That's an ultimatum for you, not the other person, is where I say non-negotiables. So to define that, I will say that non-negotiables are for you. It's not non-negotiables necessarily directed at the other person. It's about how you respond to that. I'll say this as something that, when I was at the stage I was before I met Kristen, and after my previous relationship, I hated it, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. But I had signed up for a couple of dating apps because that's what you do this day and age, right? Some of my profile pictures, most of them were me smoking a cigar in hand. That's a non-negotiable. That's my career. When I go to my doctor every 6 months, he'd have some med students in there, and they're like, the first time I went in there, like, well, it means like, he's like, is there anything else you want to say to him? Like, or any other advice you want to give to him? And they're like, well, should we tell him to stop smoking cigars? And my doctor was like, well, that's his job, so good luck. You know what I mean? Like, this is like that reality. It's like, that's a non-negotiable. So if I had health problems, that's a different conversation where it's like, he's having issues breathing. Yeah, no, we should tell him as a doctor or as someone that you're in a relationship with, is like, you can't breathe. You should not only not smoke cigars, but pick a different job.
Yeah.
And I get that completely.
Yeah.
Hopefully that never happens, but that is something that is obviously always on the table that we have to look at. And that's the same thing with taking care of yourself otherwise, with exercise and everything else. I like what John Gibson said. I don't know if he's still tuned in here, but time in 4 categories: partner time, bud time, family time, and self time. I like that. That is that work-life balance. He didn't put that in there because he's still working, but it is something that I think that in your free time, you have to be able to give yourself enough time, or something to strive for, enough time for all of that. Well, we talked about it with Shannon on the podcast recently, and I can't wait. And she's in, his wife, Shannon.
Shannon.
On the 15th, right after Valentine's Day, which I love. That might be the Valentine's Day episode this year. I think
that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I was going to do it the week before, but I think I'm going to save it for the 15th.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, but I think that
because we didn't have a true Valentine's Day episode last year.
No, but I think this is something that is important, because when you do have that time, we talked about it with Shannon Chapman on here recently, when they're going to be embarking on their RV journey.
Yeah.
I was talking about me time.
It's kind of hard to have me time in an RV.
And again, if you're traveling, it's hard to have, bud time, because you don't necessarily have the friends.
Yeah. Because you're driving away from them.
I think a lot of this work-life balance, it's very important to do that, is that you got to know that, one, your partner time should be somewhat coinciding with friend time, bud time, because that partner should be hopefully a good or best friend of yours, so that it does feel like there's a little bit of overlap there. But, sometimes, if you do have hobbies, you have to, again, I would say, I'm trying not to preach because I don't have it figured out, but I would say that it's something that you want to strive for, is that your hobbies, sure, some of them overlap, but maybe you do have a hobby that the other person doesn't enjoy. So you have to allow some time for that as well, but not at the sacrifice of these other 4 categories that John Gibson's saying: the partner time, the bud time, the family time, the self time. You have to have a little bit of that. As soon as the self time overwhelms the other 3, now all of a sudden it is a sliding scale that is getting dangerous, that the other 3 parties in that are going to be like, well, I'm going to stop inviting you stuff as a friend. Now all of a sudden you don't have that. Now you feel like well, I don't have any friends anymore. I don't have my own time. I don't have my bud time. Partner time, if you're just wanting to smoke cigars and drink whiskey with your buds, or do a hobby, whatever it might be, gym, golf, whatever it might be, something like that. If that's all that puts importance, that has more importance than spending time with anything else in your life. So you have your job and your hobby, there's no room for anything else. And I think that's the big thing that Ray was suggesting with this topic when I read it, was that you have to allow a balance of time. That if you know your allowance of time that you have outside of work, make the most of it. If work is overwhelming the other time and you're not even happy, then for fuck's sake, you're not going to make anyone else happy.
It'd be interesting for us to actually go through those 4 categories that John listed. You know, how much of that we spend outside of our work. I mean, that would definitely be an interesting thing to go down. But
well, Bobby Crow says, I think the deeper conversation should only apply to healthy relationships, so this doesn't go off the rails too much. I would agree with that to a point, but I you know, Bobby, this is everyone. I mean, when work overwhelms you and all you do is think about, you know, work.
Oh, I remember the question.
When you're off the clock and all you're concerned about is going in the next day, like that's not healthy. Because obviously that something needs to change. And I will put your comment up there, Bobby. I see, you know, Charlie, you're commenting as well as, you know, this is a personal thing. So Bobby says, so again, I feel like I should be on the podcast soon because I keep asking because I miss my friends from Ohio because being so far away in Texas. So when you don't make that time for your friends, it feels like your friends don't care. You know, I see that with this. We'll get you back on here. Would love to have you on. I'm trying to bring you up on the feed here as much as possible. And that's sometimes how life works. You know, I just hung out with one of my good friends. Some of you guys know him, not many in the community page, but my buddy Big Rob. You know, he lives 3 neighborhoods down. Known him for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we hung out last Sunday, a week ago, and it was great. It was like no time had passed. You know, it's great. But yeah, it sucks I don't see him anymore. But, you know, like with Bobby moving away, it's, yeah, love to have you on. Love to hang out, grab a drink, all that stuff. It's not like an accusation here, but you moved to Texas, you're living your life. I mean, that you're absolutely right. A FaceTime call from me or from you, obviously, is the same thing. You know, we make the best of the situation that life takes us on. And it doesn't always feel easy because, you know, there are times in the past, like with Bobby Crow and all that stuff, like we'd hang out, we'd do stuff together, grab drinks. We played Irish football together. We, you know, hung out the pool and stuff like that. Worked out sometimes. Like at that time, we both lived in the same city, let alone state. He didn't have a wife and 2 kids. You know, that is part of that balance.
Do you think that we, and I mean we in general, not just you and me, Steve, do you think we as people try to fill our non-work time so much that we neglect other areas of our life?
Explain that.
So obviously, so let's imagine we all had 9 to 5 jobs. The time after 5 o'clock, do you think we as a society are constantly trying to find things to fill the rest of that time, that 5 o'clock until bedtime? Are we trying to fill that with stuff or other people?
I think some people do that don't have family obligations, relationship obligations. If you are on your own, then yes, you are. I think the more common path for a lot of people is your obligations change. You know, we've talked about that. You know, your friend circle change, right? So when you're younger, it's all based on proximity. What neighborhood did you grow up in? Those are your friends. What school you went to? What are your hobbies then? Or what sports did you play? What extracurricular hobbies did you have? Those were your friends. As you grew up, now you have job friends, right? You hopefully continue some of those hobbies. So now it's like who you knew in high school were your good friends. They fall off. Especially when you didn't have social media. So now it's like you have work friends, you have the work happy hours. Hopefully, if you put yourself out there, you try to get hobbies and you get those things. You get in a relationship that is your friends circle changes because they have friends. You have kids. That's those are your priorities, hopefully. So you don't even have to try to fill in your time. Your time is filled in for you.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, to raise a topic out there, is that your work-life balance is you're at work and all of a sudden life is just taking care of you in a sense where you can't have a hobby because you have obligations.
Or maybe you have to, if you have too many hobbies, maybe you have to get rid of one, or
You absolutely do.
or sacrifice one in order to be able to do the others or take care of some of the other stuff.
People that are like, obligated at work, they're obligated with their kids. It's those, like, as someone that I'm in my 40s now that I don't have kids. Well, my brother has 2 kids, and we used to play softball together spring and summer.
Yeah.
And he had to stop playing because now his kids got to that age where his obligations, not in a negative way, but they take precedence over his hobbies. His new hobbies are those things. He has new friends, which are work friends, and his kids' parents are friends, or his kids' friends' parents are his friends. That's how it works a lot of times. So you have to put effort into everything else.
I think sometimes, though, the reason I asked that question, I think sometimes when we have free time where it's not our work or even a hobby, we don't know necessarily what to do with that free time. So we try and fill it with something. And I think too often we may not pick the right thing to fill that time with.
Sure.
I mean, and it's definitely more complicated if you're in a relationship where your schedules don't sync up. Because then
it is, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so when I officially start my new gig full time, there's going to be some nights that I'm free, but Jess is working, or vice versa. So what are we doing in that meantime? And then the key, I mean, so like I said earlier, Wednesdays are going to be my day off. But what am I doing on those Wednesdays? Well,
what are you doing on Wednesdays?
Well, my wife's still going to be working from home, and then at night I'm still going to be doing the podcast. So we have to find some of those other nights. So whether it be Thursday night, Sunday night, whatever it may be, we have to. Thankfully, we understand that we both have different schedules.
There you go.
And I'm so thankful that I have someone. Yeah. I could sit there and spend all my free time drinking bourbon, but that's going to take up some of the paychecks.
You have the bourbon. You just need to drink it.
I share it.
I know you do. There's no judgment here.
No, I do, because just in the 2 days that I've worked at my new job, I've run into quite a few people that's like, yeah, I'm looking for this in my collection. I have a collection of this many bottles. And I'm like, yeah, I drink it. That's what I tell them. Like, I drink it.
Sure.
When last summer, when at my soon to be old job, we had
tick.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. We had a virtual happy hour.
This is better with water, isn't it?
It is better with water.
Yeah.
Yes. We had a little work happy hour. So like the last hour of our day, we got together on Teams, and we were allowed to have a drink, and we played
COVID style.
We played 2 truths and a lie.
Oh, never do that with coworkers. It's a terrible idea, because there's always that one person that like brings it up inappropriately. So damn it, Chet.
We played 2 truths and a lie, and no one got my lie correctly. No one, out of the 3 things I listed, no one got mine right. The lie was I had more than 30 bottles of whiskey in my house. Wow. Well, they all know that I do a podcast, and they all know I love whiskey. So they were all like, "Oh no, that's the lie." Like, no, that one was actually true, because I don't collect, I drink it. But there are quite a few people where that becomes so much of a hobby to them that, and I did this too. I was one of those people that when Giant Eagle first started doing the Saturday morning releases for the allocated stuff,
Yeah.
I was one of those people that got up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and went to the liquor store and waited in line.
Yeah.
That lasted about a month and a half, and then I was tired of it. But there are still people out there that do that stuff, and they've been doing that for years. And sometimes I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing with your day?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these people, it's people that, work a regular Monday through Friday job, and their spouse works a regular Monday through Friday job. So they may be in line at a liquor store before their significant other even wakes up in the morning. But
yes.
What weigh the two of those? What are you benefiting from and what are you sacrificing? Like, is there something better you could be doing with your time?
So your significant other is doing what at that hour?
Let's say they're still sleeping. Let's say they're in bed, or they're just laying in bed staring at their phone.
I can think of a couple things to do.
I
think of one thing that you could do.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Another would be stay in bed and cuddle.
Yeah.
Another would be make breakfast.
Yeah, I do that quite a bit.
I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about
no, I know
the general population.
No, I know. Yeah.
If you would rather go wait in line for bourbon than to
spend time with your significant other,
especially
or kids,
especially in bed in the morning.
Try it when you have an in-law staying in your house.
We all make life choices,
especially when they're right down the hall.
How far down the hall?
Literally the next room.
God damn it. Well, you have that conversation when you have to have it.
Yep. Thank God they're in Florida for 10 days.
Oh, you won't be standing in line for any bourbon, hopefully, recently, like in the next 10 days.
Yep. Well, I don't do that anymore anyways. I hope
you're not missing the point here.
No, I totally get the point you're trying to make.
I think everyone gets the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, you're laying it on a little thick there, Steve.
I can say it if you'd like.
No.
So what you got to do is
well, but then that speaks to another thing. When that time or opportunity is available, what are you doing with that time? If for that purpose that you're alluding to, if there is a short window of time for that, are you taking advantage of that time, or are you filling that time with something else?
Sure.
And if you're filling it with something else, is that something else better than what you're alluding to?
It's is it better for who is the thing? And Ray says, speaking of negotiables.
Okay.
There's also some non-negotiables.
Okay. If it's better for you, so let's say the one that you're originally alluding to, that's better for both parties. If what you would want to fill your time with is better for you, but not the other party, which is more beneficial?
But
I'm going to say the one that's better for the both of you.
Yes. And I we talking about what I was talking about? Or
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that, what you're alluding to that we haven't said out loud. Like,
no, all right. So intimacy is very important.
There it is.
All right. So I said it, and Bobby Hirschman said something about, like, I said cuddling. I don't know what he meant by that, that I'm special when he commented and tagged Kristen. I think this is something that you got to make time for everything, right? So like you have to make time for, obviously, the intimacy. You have to communicate on that part, is that if life is getting in the way, that is absolutely, and it's something that a lot of people go through, that whether especially if you're single, you know what I mean? If you're confident in being single, you don't need that. You have to know that. But if it's important to a relationship or important to you, you have to be able to communicate that not only with yourself, but obviously with the other person, right? So life does get in the way. That is something that the for a lot of couples, like the roommate situation is very, very real. You know what I mean? Because life is just happening, and it's like you're with someone, you're married to someone, but it's like we all know this is that there's a balance there too. Ray brought up this, the whole work-life balance thing is that if you feel as though your home life is in check, if the other person doesn't communicate that they feel lacking in some way, but you feel like everything is in check and you're providing, like you were saying, you're providing by doing the two jobs, and you want to provide for the family, you have to have those tough conversations of like, okay, well, it's something that we need to prioritize, because a lot of times people don't always realize, we talked about it on the podcast, that people don't always realize that the other person is upset or is feeling neglected, because you're just going through the motions of work and hobbies and everything else. You know what I mean? Like, so you're saying, go ahead.
Is it your responsibility to recognize that, or is it the other party's responsibility to bring it up as an issue?
So you said the way you phrased that, yes, it is your responsibility to bring it up. The other party may not recognize it unless you bring it up. You cannot expect the other person to be a mind reader.
Yes. I think unfortunately that happens too often in relationships, is one party expects the other person to read their mind. And when the other party doesn't correctly read their mind, they get upset that they didn't read their mind. It's like, why are we dancing around this issue? If you have an issue, if something's on your mind, bring it up, because now they're 100%. We both understand that there is an issue. One party can't play dumb and say, "Oh, I didn't realize that was an issue." No, you can't say you didn't realize it was an issue because I brought it up. But it's up to, there is a sense of self-responsibility that you have to recognize it is an issue. There is a level to that. But if everything's going on and you think everything's going fine because the other party never brings it up.
I was watching a movie recently. I hadn't seen it before. As I Leave You. You ever seen that?
Never heard of it.
So Chris and I were watching it, and I love this scene, and I'm not going to do it justice, but it's a funny thing, right? So the father passes away, so all the kids have to come back, and they have to do a 7-day, the Jewish family have to do a 7-day, I forget what it's called, but they have to do that, right? So, but it's Jason Bateman and Tina Fey in this scene, right? Okay. And the movie starts with Jason Bateman, and he comes home to his wife, who's hooking up with his boss, right?
Oh,
so that's how the movie starts. Not a positive thing, obviously, but it's a kind of a feel good, pull at the heartstrings type of a family movie, right? The whole thing, right? So it gets to the scene where Jason Bateman and Tina Fey, who's his sister,
okay,
they're sitting out there, and they're at their childhood home, and she's talking to him, and they're talking about some complicated situations. I really enjoyed the movie. I'd recommend it, but Jason Bateman's like, I had no idea, I didn't expect this. And Tina Fey said, your wife was cheating on you for a year and you didn't even notice. And he had that look in that movie where it's just like, that's a valid point. He was so preoccupied with everything else that he didn't even realize. I'm not justifying the cheating in that movie. No,
no, I didn't think.
What I'm saying is that he had a realization. He's like, "Holy shit, you're right. I didn't notice because I just took it as this is what life is now."
Mm.
So occupied with work, so occupied with everything else. It's like you neglect some of those things in your life, whether it's your own personal health. It's how you're eating, how you're treating other people. You wake up and the person that you might trust the most in a relationship or a friendship or whatever it might be, or if your personal life starts overwhelming or overtaking your career, that's that point where your employer will make that choice, not the boss sleeping with your wife, but your employer will make that choice for you, because everything else is more important than your job. But you feel like, oh, I got my job, this is my career, I'm still performing. And they're like, no, you're not, because everything else is important. Same thing with a personal relationship. That's that work-life balance thing, is that you should be aware of it if you're putting enough focus and effort in on all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that people don't necessarily take into consideration is if you're in a relationship, if you're not giving the other party time, attention, focus, that's something that us as human beings crave. If you're not giving it to that person, they're going to find it somewhere.
Or employer, yeah.
Or yeah, they're gonna find that somewhere, because that's something that we crave as human beings. We crave that attention. We crave affection. We crave wanting to be wanted. And if someone doesn't feel like they're wanted in a relationship, they're gonna find that someplace else.
I love this comment here. He's funny, like talking about like the career, the work-life balance with Bourbon Sherpa.
Yeah.
Which he's been a supporter of the podcast for a long time, and I asked him about that, and he said, he's commented a bit, and I asked him. I had a couple that I know that they were looking at the Bourbon Trail as a bachelor party, and I said, well, I know someone that owns a lot of Airbnbs. We talked about it. Remember him? That's who's listening.
All right. Now I know who you are.
And he said, I might have heard from him, but I'm slammed right now. He's hosting Bourbon Pursuit Palooza with 100 of their fans on June 10th. Those guys are great. There's a side story there. It's not even that big of a deal. Bourbon Pursuit, that whole thing.
Yeah, I do.
That's fine. That's great. I think it's fantastic. But you commented about, let's see, where it was.
I said, what are you sacrificing, and is it worth it?
Yeah, and he says, Nate, I sacrificed a lot, gave up a career as an engineer for 20 years working at a plush corporation, insurance, in an office to go to. It was like shedding a body or something. It's crazy. Gave up something, but gained so much. I pulled multiple all-nighters working for a company to make the owner more money to give to his kids. So would love to get you on also the podcast. I know we're not as big as Bourbon Pursuit, but I appreciate you taking your time to listen to this. I know you've mentioned that you enjoy our format and you enjoy, what we're doing here, but he's the one also owns the Woodford Hotel. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's called the Woodford Hotel, and he owns a lot of Airbnbs down in the he's even offered in the past.
Yeah. We just didn't have the group
to do a discount on some of his homes. He's probably too big for that, which I'm not asking for discounts for our group, but yeah, definitely we'll share that stuff as soon as, if you want to hit me up with the link again with some of that stuff, not for a discount, but just to get your name out there.
Because that was something that you and I had talked about doing
when we went to Louisville
2 years ago. When you and I went to Louisville, we had talked about like trying to get because that was just you and I going down to Louisville for a few days and, doing some tours and tastings and stuff like that. But we actually talked about, like, wouldn't it be nice to be able, because, they threw up an offer for a couple of their locations.
Yeah.
And it was just too much for the two of us. It was too big for the two of us.
Yeah.
But we had talked about, like, let's try and get a group of fellow bourbon enthusiasts.
Yeah, he's
to be able to go down and do something like that. And the only issue that came about with that, like, yes, we would absolutely love to do that. The only issue was, trying to get that many people's schedules to sync up to be able to do something
just
like
anything
that.
else. You just gotta throw it out there and see what you get as far as
takes a lot of planning and a lot of forethought.
Yeah. There you go. There's the website up on the screen. If you guys are watching live Absolutely. KentuckyBourbonTrail.club. So great to have you listening tonight. Love the support. You know, going back to all this stuff, and I love some of the comments coming through, but you make a limit of 15 people, and the first 15 to pay get to go. Love it. Yeah, the hotel holds 24. Well, you have other beautiful properties as well. But getting back to the topic here, Nate, is work-life balance. Where are we at here?
2.5.
You close it out? You want to keep going a little bit?
Yeah, we can close it out.
All right. So closing remarks here. Making time for others. Work-life balance. Does anyone really have it taken care of?
I think a lot of the people that do have it taken care of, you don't necessarily hear that much from them about it.
Why?
Because things are going good. They don't feel the need to flaunt it. But also at the same time, for other people, they may not notice it. They may not notice that someone else has a really good work-life balance. But when they do recognize someone, it means more when it's someone close to you that you value their opinion of things.
Sure.
If you have a friend, like Josh Bentley always talks about, like his board of directors.
Yeah.
If you see the people that are close to you and the people that are important to your life, and they have things to get, together, everything's organized, things are going great, they have a great balance. When it's people that are close to you, you'll recognize that and you'll feed off that. I think sometimes because we may, I think sometimes we try and make ourselves too busy, and because of that, we overlook some of the other aspects.
You mentioned that earlier. What do you mean by that? Why do you make yourself too busy?
I think some of us,
you're trying to fill in. You brought this up, and I don't think
yeah.
And I'm not trying to keep this thing going. I'm just saying, for your closing remarks, like you were saying, like, Wednesdays, that's your new day off, even though you have the podcast. So like now all of a sudden,
it's going to be, what am I doing with that time off? Am I using it to my advantage to benefit my relationship at home?
She's working.
So am I using it just to benefit me?
Do you do things around the house? Do you go for a walk? That's the time when that is your self time. She's busy, you're free. So that's when you go out on the patio or you go to a cigar shop and smoke a cigar.
So if you're doing that, if you're doing that stuff for you, when you have time available and it's only you that has that time available, that's one thing. If you're doing those things when you have the time and the other person has the time, but you're not including them in that, now that's an issue.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like with your Wednesdays off, what are you going to do?
So during those times when my wife is working, I'm going to be using that time to better my career, my new position.
Okay.
So that and I'm going to do that when I have the time. So that way, when the two of us have free time, we can spend our collective free time together instead of like, hey, we got this free time together. Yeah, but I really need to study up on this. Well, what were you doing during the rest of the day? Why couldn't you do that during the day?
Sure.
Like, oh, yeah, that's a really good point. Next time, I'm going to focus on that during the day while you are busy doing other stuff. So that way we do have that free time, and now we can spend it together. It's about trying to make the best of what time you have available with each other. When you're the only one in the relationship that has free time at a certain time, that's the time that you can use it to spend with yourself, with your buds, or whatever. If you're in a relationship, you need to make the best of the time that you have together to spend that time together instead of filling it with other things.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of us that we spend that free time, we try and fill it with other things, whether it be a hobby, whether it be just sitting in front of the TV, watching movies, whatever it is, and then that other party feels neglected because they sit there and go, well, you had all this other time in the day to be able to do that. What are you doing with me? So there's some resentment there.
Yeah, so I've heard that too, because there are those Mondays during the day where Chris is working and I'm at home, and it's as simple for me as that's the only. I'm not going out doing shit. I'm not doing anything. This is my time, literally at the house. I should be doing other things, but I'm just hanging out with my dog and just relaxing, having that moment, where sometimes I need a recharge moment. From Jess.
Yes.
Do you want to comment on that?
So yeah, my wife texted me.
Jess, would you please, if it's appropriate?
It takes a long time for her to text.
Kristen texts me sometimes. She also comments on the feed. I mean,
it takes her a while to type out the message on the TV downstairs.
I do like this comment from the Bourbon Sherpa here.
Go ahead.
No, this is to what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
And what we're doing here is, and I love it because I know he's, again, hosting a bigger podcast than what we are. It says being comfortable is the scariest feeling ever. I love your guys' willingness to talk about these issues. This is, I do appreciate what Bourbon Pursuit does, and those guys have done so much for that, right? For they're straight bourbon talk podcast that I've listened to, and I can appreciate it. All jokes aside about the past and about the intro music, which I don't even use anymore, but loving the fact that this is something that everyone, whether you're a bourbon drinker, cigar smoker, but I even have had so many people, not just my girlfriend, but other people that have listened to the podcast. So I had celebrating Spencer Lappin's engagement.
Yeah, congrats, Spencer.
Yeah, we'll get him back on here real soon. But his fiance now, we went to dinner the other night, couple nights ago, and she listens to the ones that he's on, and she's like, I just love part 2 because I just get to hear guys' perspectives on stuff. and we've had some females on here, but it was cool to see that. So thank you for those that listen to part 2. It's cool to hear that you guys appreciate this.
Yeah. What my wife had texted me, she goes, sometimes we wear busyness as a badge of honor when we are really just making ourselves more tired. That's what I was kind of going to about filling our empty time with other stuff.
Yeah.
All we're doing is making ourselves busy, and we're taking time away from the other people that are important to us. She even removed Facebook from her phone.
Ooh.
Because let's face it, I mean, some of the social media platforms, I mean, how often do you sit there and spend, for crying out loud, your phone can actually track it. If you really wanted to know, it'll tell you how much time you spend on all these.
I get alerts.
Yeah.
It's a big win when it's down. Screen time's down.
Well, I know like on Sundays.
Not often, but it happens.
I know like on Sundays when I'm working at Cinderbox, the other person I'm working with, I hear their phone dinging all the time throughout the day. It's all sports alerts.
Oh, I thought it was. Never mind.
It's all sports alerts, and then every time I hear their phone ring, I'm like, all right, it's either your wife or your daughter. I'm going to go with your daughter this time.
Yeah, Steelers aren't even in the playoffs.
Doesn't matter. And I'm right about 90% of the time. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, they know you're working, and they're still bugging the shit out of you every single hour of the day.
So how does that apply to your?
Guess what? When you're not working, spend some time with your fucking kid or wife.
All right, calm down.
So that way, when you're at work, they leave you the hell alone. Spend time with the people that are around you when you are around them.
That's a communication thing, I think, because that's something that I go through, not go through, but I experience with my girlfriend, right?
I think it's something that
It's
we
a little
all
different because it was like one of those things when I say, "Oh, it's slow in the shop." Like right now, you mentioned it,
I did, yeah.
and Ray mentioned it, and it's like we communicated about that. It's like, she's like, "Well, I just feel like you're not really like texting back as much today. You said it was slow." And I'm like, "So I've been on my phone. I've had people in the store. We're talking about all this stuff, and all it takes is expressing honesty, and that's all it takes."
Well, I think that other party knows that, like, when you're at work, like, your focus is work. Like,
Yeah.
because
Marshgard.
because the two of you are
Marshgard.
not working in the same room at the same time,
Mhm.
that other party should know that just because you didn't text back right away, you may be busy dealing with customers, you may be busy setting up the events, you may have
not-
other stuff
it's-
going on.
My point is that it's about communicating that stuff. Is the work-life balance. Sometimes work does take the front seat, especially if nothing is necessarily wrong with if you have that. So again, it's communicating. If you don't have the overall problem, that all you do is work, you don't pay attention to what you were saying, your family, your wife, your daughter, or whatever it might be. If you spend that time with them, you have that. It's like, it's not about like, hey, don't call me, don't text me. It's the fact that like, hey, like, let me explain why I'm not texting back. Let me explain why I couldn't take that call.
That could be something that I'm going to have to
That's
deal with my new position.
That takes effort, but it all it takes is being honest. It's like, no, like, I understand why you're frustrated. I understand that you're not just blowing smoke up the skirt. You're just saying like, I understand why you're frustrated. Let me explain my side, and then how can I make this work better for the family, for the relationship, all that stuff.
I think if you weren't utilizing the free time that the two of you have in common,
I'm not just saying me.
No, this is in general. I'm saying if you and your significant other aren't utilizing the common free time you have together to spend time together, then when you're apart, that other party may take some sort of resentment to you not immediately responding when
Thank you, Ray.
when you're at work or you're doing something else.
Yeah.
If you're taking care of if you're doing things together when you have a common free time, then it's not so much of an issue when you don't have common free time.
It's how you respond. It's how you communicate. The work-life balance is, especially if you're on your own, you have to communicate with the person in the mirror, right? You have to deal with that. What makes you happy? Are you happy with it? And can you communicate that with your employer or with the powers that be, that you need to be able to, it's one of those things. My previous career is like, I need to take time. I'm going to take this time off. They're like, oh, you're taking time off. It's like, well, I'm entitled to this. It's like, you have to be able to do that. You should not feel guilty about taking time off for your personal life.
And you should not let your employer make you feel guilty for taking time off.
Agreed. Same thing.
Because I've dealt with that in the past too.
But yeah, agreed. But what you were just bringing up, I'll comment on that, is that if you explain to them, it's like, hey, this is where we're at. This is why I didn't respond. Do you want to bring up more Jeff's comments?
No, go ahead. Keep talking. I have to read what she said.
I'm just saying is that you have to be able to communicate. It's how you react to it. It's how you communicate as well. When someone expresses what we were talking about earlier in part 2, right, Nate, is that it's like, you don't know. Like, you asked that question, is it your responsibility to recognize, or is it their responsibility to
bring it up?
Both. And that's what I said.
Yeah.
In the same sense is both. But you have to be able to walk through it with them from an importance level, to say, hey, I understand you might feel that I was too busy, or I was not acknowledging this. Or you could respond with, God, like, fucking, like I'm working, like, stop. That's not a good way to communicate it.
Yeah. Well,
like, gee, I'm fucking working. Like, stop texting me. Like, or you can say, all right, I understand that. I was really busy. I didn't mean to neglect you. Like, this work-life balance thing is that, like we had Ray and he did sign off, I think, because he had to go because he's busy this afternoon or whatever. But
Morning.
he was sitting there smoking a cigar. I talked to him. I think it was this last Wednesday or the previous Wednesday, and you had left. Everyone, but I did a video call with him, and it was
yeah, I had left by then.
Yeah, I was inside and I was video chatting with him, and I think it was when he was sitting there. This is a common theme for him. He respects the fact that they're smoking a cigar across the table and she's still working. It's not the fact that she's like, just leave me alone. I got to do this work, get out of my hair, all that stuff. It's like, it's the communication. It's the acknowledgement of what the life is bringing. If it was something that really bothered Ray or bothered the other party, you have to talk it through.
Yeah,
you really do. You have to acknowledge. You have to also express your side of it. If you hide your side of it and you're like, no, I'm busy. Like, stop. Like, I can't believe you're texting me all day. That's a childish way to do it.
So there was a time when you and I were having a conversation, and Jess had brought up, just because a party reaches out to you, texts you, emails you, or whatever, that doesn't mean that you are sitting there staring at your phone waiting for them to say something to you so that way you can immediately respond.
Sure.
That other party has to realize that if you're not in the same room, you may be busy doing something else, and that person may not immediately respond to you. It's not because they don't want to talk to you. It's not because they're ignoring you. It's because something else has come up, and it could be work related, or it could be their own personal life related. But again, like you said numerous times, it's about the communication. Like, I understand you texted me this. I was busy doing this because this is my job. I wasn't just sitting there doing nothing, staring at my phone.
Sure.
And waiting for you to text so that way I can immediately respond.
But you have to be able to communicate the fact that after the fact that you express that.
Yeah.
But you also, I feel as though when you get back to that person, whether it be your wife or whatever it might be, your friend or whatever, it's like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, not sorry, not to start with that. I'm so sorry. But it's like, hey, I'm sorry that you were turned off or you were offended or you felt like I was neglecting you. I was busy at that point. You have a conversation. This is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you express that.
The last two things I'll say.
All right.
Texted to me by Jess.
Thanks for commenting on the feed there, Jess.
As a society, we survived for so long without a smartphone. It is still a luxury item that is making us all depressed and anxious. Turning it off and look at those in front of you. You'll be far less anxious and happier. Be about the practice of talking to those in front of you. And if you're out of that practice, sit in the discomfort until you get better at it.
Well, I like that.
I think that's the issue a lot of us have. We don't want to sit in that discomfort and have an honest conversation.
Jess, you want to come on the Valentine's Day special with Shannon? Let's go. Kristen, I love you.
She'll take my spot.
I'm going to be on the side. No, you guys will be on, and I'm going to be on the side. Have two couples on. Kristen will probably be in the audience and have the other mic. Bobby Hirschman said this, and I want to comment. Come on. What did you say?
You aren't that busy to answer a text. Take seconds. No, sometimes you are.
So
sometimes you are.
So for me, that situation, I've had this conversation is that, in the shop or whatever, it's like, I'll read a text, it pops up, I'll read it literally as I'm like helping a customer. That alert goes away, right? So I mess up to a point where I'm like, it could be something just simple conversation. It's not like something serious. And then I get busy for 15, 20 minutes in the shop or whatever. I'm in a conversation with a rep and I'm like, oh, I'll respond back. And then all of a sudden it's in this day and age with the technology we have, it's even more insulting. It's like, oh, well, like,
when you leave a text message on red.
Well, yeah.
You and I have had that.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about that.
Yeah. So it's one of those things is you just have to have the conversation. My closing remarks on this part is that, one of the things that pops up all the time now, and I've seen it from so many, podcast people and Instagram influencers and all this stuff, is that, listen to this, the work-life balance. I've been listening. This was not planned. This is something as we've talking about this, and I want to round it out, is there's so many people out there that are trying to like push this topic. If you die, your employer will fill your job
before your funeral. They'll at least
not before.
They'll post your job.
Listen what I'm saying here. If you die, your employer will fill your job as soon as they can. Your family and your loved ones will have to deal with that, and they're going to live with that for as long as they have to. Right?
Damn.
Listen. The work-life balance is that if you have it in check, if your employee dies, what do? Do you stop, like say, well, no, I can't service my customers anymore because my employee passed away? Are they at fault? Life has to go on. So if you that's the work-life balance, is that your work. I also know my previous employer, one of my friends that was an employee of mine that I knew a long time while I was working in my previous career, passed away after I left there. Young, late 30s, strong guy, life of the party. And he was in the gym and his heart stopped. His widow came in and bought cigars. Because I knew him after the fact, right? My previous employer, this shit is a good way to push people to think a certain way. My previous employer they have this award for current employees that are called the Anthony Thompson People Award. If you're doing your best and you have that personality, you win this award. So that part, I appreciate.
It was named after that person?
Absolutely. That is not always on you. It's not a negative like people portray. If you give a lot to your employer or your job and all that stuff, as long as you're doing things that you keep the balance in check, if you passed away, your employer is not always just going to move on. I know that for a fact. Even at the Tinderbox, we have that Vince Canzani shadow box.
Mm-hmm.
He was a part-time employee for a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
We stopped what we were doing to appreciate him, and that still sits up on the wall in the Tinderbox at Easton.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you do this right by you, everyone benefits. Your memory will serve on with everyone involved, including hopefully a company that you're dedicating your working hours to, and you're in Vince's case, it was more the cigar community than his personal life. But you have to align yourself with people that will value you, whether you're here or gone. This whole thing about the fact that the employer is just going to move on and like, fuck your employer, you should spend more time with people that are important to you. If you are not spending time with people that are important to you, absolutely. I love the mindset that they framed there. However, if you're in the right surroundings, every aspect of your life is going to miss you. That's what I feel like people should strive for in this work-life balance relationship. We would not have a shadow box with the day that we did a memorial for Vince in the cigar shop.
Mm-hmm.
My previous employer would not have an award with a picture of Anthony. So you oversimplify that, it's not okay. But I think that if you are living your life, that you have a family life, you have your personal life, and yet you're still dedicating your work life, your career life in a good way, and you have a good work-life balance, you're going to impact so many more people while you're living, while you're gone, all that stuff. And I don't think that you should oversimplify it, that your personal life is more important than your work life. I think it is. However, that's who makes you who you are. If all you were was someone that didn't work and you stay at home, you're a different person. Your drive, your career, your aspirations makes you who you are if you know what it is. Your non-negotiables in your work life and your personal life, if you can define those, you will absolutely benefit yourself more, and you will benefit everyone that surrounds you in all your circles exponentially. And I think that's what we should all strive for. So I'll cheers to that.
Cheers.
Now cheers to Vince Gonzani, Anthony Thompson. Cheers, guys, and all to you guys.